both speakers on stage at the same time versus toggling back and forth depending on audio. Secondly, we definitely recommend that if you have a colleague or a friend, family member who wasn't able to attend or register for today, feel free to shoot them over this URL. We're here all afternoon, so if they have a moment they want to tune in, they can register at any time. And the broadcast is also live on YouTube right now, so we recommend that you guys go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel, and you'll always have updates of when we're live. So without further ado, I want to jump into the program because we have some fantastic content planned for you guys. So I would like to welcome to the stage Megan Oswick. She is the SVP of Brand Partnerships at Whaler, who's an awesome partner of Brand Innovators. We're so excited to have them here today. She's going to be joined by Rachel Tipograph. She is the founder of Micmac. After being the global director of digital and social media at Gap, where she oversaw strategy, implementation, and measurement, Rachel traveled the world solo and founded Micmac. So Megan is going to give us a brief presentation on how influencer marketing can drive product sales, and then we'll bring Rachel to the stage for a little conversation. So hey, Megan.
Hi, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Can everybody see my screen? Good? Okay. Oh, sorry. Is it up? Lauren?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
So yep. So let's go to screen sharing now and start the presentation.
Okay. So thank you so much, Lauren. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today with Rachel to talk about influencer marketing and the intersection of content and commerce. I spent the bulk of my career in magazine publishing, Hearst, Condé Nast, Time Inc. So I've really had a front row seat at how rapidly consumer behavior has changed. And this is something that's only accelerated in the last 7 months due to COVID-19. So adapting quickly has never been more critical to succeed. It's really crucial that a brand meet the consumer where they are and speak to them how they want to be spoken to. When done well, influencer marketing is the most powerful solution to help brands deeply connect with their customers to drive brand affinity and product sales. So let's look at where your consumer is today. The obvious answer is on social. That's something that we've known for quite some time, but it's really interesting to look at the impact that COVID has had on their behavior digitally, and to sort of question, are these changes that are here to stay? So 51% of adults in the US say that they're using social media much more since COVID started. An average of 2 hours and 22 minutes per day. And 99% of all internet users have actually used social media or a messaging network in the last 30 days. It's not surprising that more time at home, far less time in store, and of course, frictionless e-commerce solutions have really accelerated online shopping. It's astonishing how quickly it's happened. This June, grocers saw an increase of 500% year over year. Conversion rates have increased, transactions have increased, and 49% of consumers say that this shopping behavior is here to stay post-COVID. I could give you sorry?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. We're having some technical difficulties on our side. Would you be able to begin your screen share once more?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. That would be great.
Okay, so. Did it work?
Perfect. Yes. Yep.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Were you not able to see that?
Just not at the very beginning, but you didn't go.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so essentially, it's transparent that what's happening is content people are engaging with is driving purchase behavior and doing so in real time. So let me position this in a slightly different way. A New York Times article recently said that grocers saw 8 years of projected growth in 1 month. So while this may be an extreme, this type of acceleration is happening all over. The question is, how do you seize what is a very real opportunity? It requires engaging with your consumer in the right way. And this really starts with understanding how humans react to content. This has been top of mind at Whaler since we launched. And while we had our beliefs in what worked, we decided to validate these assumptions. So in 2019, we conducted the first ever neurological study looking at the impact that influencer branded content had on audiences versus branded ads on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TV. We measured brain waves to do this. And what we found is influencer content, when done right, elicited 277% more of an intense reaction and was 87% more memorable. This is important because creativity drives emotion, emotion drives memory, memory drives recall, and recall drives sales. So this study really proved what we had known for a while, which is human-to-human connection works much better than brands speaking at people. But understanding this only gets you so far. Now, more than ever, brands need strategic partners that can help them successfully navigate the landscape and execute digital content that connects and converts, and do all of that quickly. Whaler is that partner. Our mission is matching brands with influential creators to produce authentic content at scale. We deliver on that mission via 3 key pillars: creativity, working with the most creative, authentic storytellers. In fact, we are the only influencer agency to have won a Cannes Lion. Our best-in-class technology harnesses the power of the Graph API to apply creator and audience data to drive the matchmaking process. And finally, we would be nothing without our community of 7,000 creators globally. They're diverse and representative of your consumer. So all of this results in unparalleled output that drives action. And it's because of this that we've had the distinct pleasure of working with brands across every vertical. And we are constantly evaluating that work to create best practices and actionable insights to ensure the output continues to get better and better. So I wanted to highlight 5 key findings that we've identified as key to successful influencer marketing. My hope is that these learnings can help you be more effective in your influencer marketing strategy. When evaluating influencers, it's important to prioritize who you're reaching versus the audience size. Follower count isn't a measurement of true influence with an audience, and most importantly, it doesn't give insight into the composition of that audience. So using a print analogy, in the same way that you'd likely opt to market pots and pans within the pages of Bon Appetit over Vogue, the same principle applies here. So make sure the influencer's audience is made up of who you're trying to reach demographically, psychographically, location, interests, etc. Engagement has been a metric that's been how influencers have been measured since influencer marketing began. But like audience size, evaluating an influencer on this alone can be misleading. A critical component of successful influencer collaboration is a relevant fit. A creator whose voice makes sense for your brand and whose life your product organically fits into. The partnership has to make sense. We know that the best influencer marketing comes from a combination of data to understand audience composition, as well as human insights to assess brand alignment and cultural relevance. Trust is the crux of effective influencer marketing, and it's built over time. After all, you as a brand are tapping creators who have built trust with their audiences by sharing their stories, points of view, lives, style over time. Collaboration via a single post, specifically without any obvious or easily explained alignment, can result in the audience questioning the influencer's real affinity for the product. There are additional benefits to longer-term ambassadorships that include economies of scale, as well as strengthening alignment with certain talent to help facilitate additional product love and conversation. So what does good look like? Success is a true collaboration and requires both the brand's objective and the creator's voice to be included. It's critical that each party understand the shared objectives, values, aesthetics, styles. The strength of the brief is everything. When done successfully, it offers marketers a scalable, creative production model that's on brand while talking to audiences on a much more one-to-one level. And finally, measurement. A client of mine once said, "You can't treasure what you can't measure." And I absolutely love that quote because all roads lead to measurement. If you think about it, to scale, you need to prove effectiveness. To prove effectiveness, you need to measure. To get more effective, you need to optimize. And to optimize, you need to measure. So embrace the tools that exist to enable full funnel measurement. The importance of measurement is the perfect segue to introduce Rachel Tipograph, founder of Micmac, which is an e-commerce platform that helps brands understand consumers better by connecting digital investments to online retailer insights. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Let me just stop sharing my screen.
Oh, great. This worked out.
How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my kitchen.
Oh, I love it. It's great to see you.
Too.
So I have to say, it's so nice to be with you. I am an online shopping addict, so I absolutely love how seamless Micmac makes the experience. So thank you for that, first and foremost. I'd love to start by just digging in a little bit on how e-com has changed and then how Micmac has successfully evolved to address that.
Yeah, well, you alluded to it in the beginning of your presentation. I mean, week of March 9th, the world changed, e-commerce changed, and my company changed in ways that I could never imagine. Consumer demand for e-commerce accelerated 5 years overnight. The easiest way to conceptualize it is one of my favorite people in the industry, who's now a dear client and friend, Gail Harwood. Back in the day, she's the CMO of Kellogg's. She would always say to me, "Rachel, love you, love Micmac. But the reality is 97% of our revenue comes from brick and mortar." And then fast forward to the week of March 9th, she calls me up and she goes, "Guess what? Now 33% of our revenue comes from e-commerce."
Overnight.
That type of growth is astronomical. And so what's happened is that, as people are settling into their ways at home, all of their shopping behaviors have moved online, especially within verticals that were lagging behind. So online grocery shopping, online liquor shopping has exploded. And it takes 21 days to build a habit. And we're pretty much 7 months into this pandemic. And all you have to do is look at China and Europe to know that even after those countries reopen, e-commerce continued to grow. It's here to stay. And if brands aren't thinking e-commerce first with their go-to-market, they will fall further and further behind.
Great. Yeah.
And then in terms of your second part of the question, what does Micmac do? So we are an e-commerce acceleration platform for multi-channel brands. So if the majority of your sales come from places like Amazon, Target, Walmart, Ulta, Sephora, Drizzly, Minibar, Instacart, Kroger, Peapod, you will probably become my client because you live in darkness with e-retail data. So we help brands grow their sales online, and we provide end-to-end customer journey insights all the way from media impression or influencer impression down to the end sale at major marketplace and wholesalers, as well as enable multi-retailer e-com. So if you've ever been in an environment like Instagram stories or TikTok or paid search, and you've been given the opportunity to decide where do you want to check out, like Amazon, Target, Walmart, that's Micmac behind the scenes powering that.
I love it. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about, insights and sort of how consumers feel, sort of drawn to specific retailers and how that can help with purchase?
Yeah. Well, there's the pre-COVID world and the post-COVID world. In the pre-COVID world, retail loyalty was real, meaning if you were a Sephora loyalist, you wanted all those points, and it didn't matter what sale Ulta was happening, you were going to Sephora. The same thing for Amazon Prime, right? Like you're like, I have Amazon Prime, that's the only place I'm going to shop. That totally changed after COVID. We've actually seen retail loyalty go out the window, and what consumers care about right now is, number one, is the product in stock? If it's in stock, how fast can I get it? And then third is price. And so the name of the game now is marrying consumer demand to where inventory is available. And a lot of retailers that you've probably never shopped at now have your credit card information on file because you weren't able to purchase free weights at Amazon. And so you ended up on some random health fitness website. And we continue to see that happen.
Wow. So interesting how quickly things can shift. But the world has been turned upside down for sure. It's great that you have sort of the insights to help inform how marketers can, tackle things at this time. So we often talk to brands about the power of tapping influencers to help understand platforms, especially emerging platforms, what works, what doesn't, how to really navigate the platform. Can you talk a bit about how brands should be thinking about and leveraging emerging platforms?
Yeah. So our top performing clients traffic MicMac in 29 different channels. So there's been sort of this myth in the industry, again, pre-COVID, that let me do fewer platforms and do them bigger and better. And I think the entire industry realized the risk in doing that strategy this summer when the Facebook boycott happened. What happened was our clients then logged into the MicMac dashboard and was like, if we're not going to invest dollars in Facebook/Instagram, where are we going to reallocate spend? And what I can tell you is when you remove Facebook and Instagram from the equation, in terms of e-commerce conversion and channels, programmatic publisher media becomes number one, Snap becomes number two, Pinterest becomes number three, and then environments like TikTok and Twitter, Twitch are sort of like more emerging and are neck and neck. But if you want to drive e-commerce sales online, remove platforms aside, everything starts and ends with campaign objectives. So if you're buying media and you say, hey, Facebook, I'm buying awareness-based media, and then your boss is holding you accountable for e-commerce sales, you have to push back on your boss because that's not how it works. If you want to drive e-commerce sales online, you need to have a bottom of the funnel campaign objective like traffic, add to cart events, or checkout events. Now, it's different, right, with influencers because you don't have that interface to tell the influencer what the outcome is. And that's when with influencers, you really have to understand the strength of their community and have they trained their community to shop? Because some influencers have and other influencers have not.
Yep, that's a really, really great point. And I think that goes into the matchmaking process and sort of really understanding what the brand's objectives are, because we are also able to identify who has trained their audience to shop and who hasn't, and if it is a lower funnel objective, tapping those types of influencers. So that's a really great point. So sadly, I'm old enough to remember the 1980s infomercial. Given the shrinking attention span of consumers, can you talk about how marketers can be thinking about grabbing consumers' attention successfully?
Yeah. I mean, I also still love the infomercial industry, and actually a lot of inspiration for my company came from that. You know, the amazing thing about the infomercial industry is that they really nailed the art and science of shopping. And psychologists have studied it for the last 20 years. And the relationship between a host and a viewer is what they describe as a parasocial relationship, meaning you, the viewer, believe that the host is your friend. And when you buy from them, you actually get the same emotional benefit as friendship. It's really sick and twisted. And I'm sure everyone has, seen the documentary on the Miracle Mop. Man, is it effective. And so when it comes to how do you create engaging content, there's a lot to learn from the infomercial industry. And if you pay attention to QVC and HSN and, eVine, what you'll notice is that in the first 3 seconds, they show the product in full. In the subsequent 7 to 10 seconds, they're essentially showing you the how-to benefits of that product. What's the promise of that product? Now, those programs can go on for an hour. When you're talking about social media, you actually have 1.5 seconds to get a consumer's attention. And so MikMak, we work across every consumer product subcategory: beauty, personal care, food, bev, booze, pets, you name it. And there's creative best practices for each of those. But what I can tell you in a nutshell is when you want to sell products online, you don't try to hide it. You actually need to scream from the rooftops that you're trying to sell this product. Here are the 3 key benefits, and this is why you should buy it. And if you're in beauty and personal care, the most effective way to do that is before and after transformation. So everyone should follow my client at Elf Cosmetics. They kill it in this department. And Corey, the CMO, she's just so progressive and an amazing thought leader. When it comes to food, you pretty much want to open up on a food porn shot and then show the recipe on how to create that. When it comes to apparel and footwear, you want to show a product on a model of different shapes and sizes in a 360-degree view. Consumer electronics, it's more of that how-to, sort of what we at MikMak call the WTF. So you see something and you're like, whoa, how did that happen? Like, that's what's really effective.
Wow. What does that mean for the 2020 holiday season? Understanding that sort of different verticals need to adopt different formats as we go into holiday. Any advice?
Yeah. The 2020 holiday season is different than any other time, right? Because one, we're really spending the holidays at home, and it's been a tough year. So from like a sentiment standpoint, people are turning back to nostalgia. So one of my big clients is Hershey's. They're killing it because America right now is looking to turn back to pastime favorites. They want to be comforted. So I think from a creative standpoint, like playing into nostalgia is really big, as well as like trying to create entertainment and joy in people's lives. When it comes to shopping, we're entering an economic recession. I think people are going to really be conscious of the amount of money that they're spending. So there's that element. But really what it's going to come down to is actually supply chain. It's going to feel a lot like what March and April was in e-com, where you had retailers sending messages to brand manufacturers saying, stop sending traffic to us right now. We can't handle fulfillment. That was the first time in the history of retail where you had someone like Target telling brand manufacturers to not send traffic to them. And so if I was a brand manufacturer right now, I'd be saying, do we have our house in order? Meaning, how much supply do we actually have for America? And then marrying a media plan to match that. Because what we see day in and day out at MikMak is if your product is out of stock, the consumer will put a competitor into their cart. There's no brand loyalty now. And once that happens, you lose market share. And the thing about e-com and replenishment is all you do is hit reorder. It's a game of first to basket.
Wow. Yeah, that's a shift for sure. You talked about parasocial relationships, sort of as it relates to infomercials. But, sort of those are defined as this one-sided relationship. And we see it all the time. Consumers feel like they know the influencers that they follow. They feel like, she's a close personal friend, and those influencers start to inspire purchase decisions the same way as a friend in real life would. Can you talk about parasocial relationships and sort of how brands can leverage those for success?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, like you believe that this person is your friend. And so from a brand standpoint, I actually think there's like a few great examples. If you think about Flo from the Progressive ads. Yeah. If you think about Jared from the Verizon ads. I'm blanking on the guy's name from the Subway ads that was like, walking every day.
Jared.
Yeah. those are perfect examples of mass market brands applying the same principle. And really what that is about designating a host that you feel represents your brand values, and then repetition.
Mhm.
That's really what it takes. And all of a sudden, your brand becomes synonymous with that person's face. And, hopefully they have a personality that connects with the customers that you're trying to attract. And they will build that parasocial relationship. It is all about repetition.
Mhm.
People want to feel like this is a person that is constantly showing up in their life. What happens on the flip side is if you, the brand or the host, cross a line that people find unacceptable, that's when things become a slippery slope. And so, that's always the caution with like influencer media, and brand safety is something that's, very top of mind for people.
Can you just sort of digging into your point, I know in the past you've talked about, and I found it really interesting about how these parasocial relationships can really humanize a commodity, right? So like very sort of like specific businesses. So like how can marketers be thinking about that from like a storytelling perspective, or like certain verticals where that would really be helpful to sort of put a human element to what they sell?
Yeah, I mean, I think it applies to all industries, especially even when I talk with professional service industries, people are like, oh, professional services is so dry. I mean, well, first of all, it's not. We're in the professional service industry, and I am the face of MicMac, right? And I mean, there's good and bad to that, but it really applies to any industry. I have a friend, her name's Dr. Robin Burzin. If you guys follow her, she has a social media following, and she's a medical doctor, family doctor. She now has a business called Parsley Health, and she's become a personality, right? And so when you talk to your friends who are doctors and they're asking you for marketing, I'm like pointing there to Robin. And, everyone has the opportunity to really build that parasocial relationship because we all essentially have a video device in the palm of our hands. So it applies to all industries.
Do you have any advice, like just sort of thinking about, multiple age groups on the same platform, on how like marketers can think about engaging, Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, that all comes down to like your audience segmentation and content strategy. And before I started building MicMac, I ran global digital at Gap, and they hired me because they wanted to lower the average age of their customers. So when I started, it was a 47-year-old woman. When I left 3 years later, we knocked a decade off the customer. But to do that, I had a challenging conversation with my boss, who was the CMO at the time, and he got there. But his name was Seth Farbman. He went on to be the CMO of Spotify. I said, Seth, I can't send any 20-something to Gap.com. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I was like, the brand reputation is so low that the moment that this 20-something woman arrives to brand.com, she's going to bounce. And that's when in 2011, I created this influencer program that was way ahead of its time. It was called Style Buy. And the whole premise was we're going to send our best product to different types of fashion and lifestyle influencers, tell them to style it however they want, photograph it however they want. The only requirement, and this is 2011 when blogs were still relevant, was that they had to put a piece of JavaScript code on their site. And what it was the Gap.com shopping cart. Because my premise was you need to convert people in the places where they spend time.
Right.
And so if, you loved what Something Navy was wearing, buy it there. Don't send them to Gap.com. And I think influencers are an amazing vehicle to drive diverse customer acquisition at different age levels, because it's really hard to do that in organic, because in organic, you have to be one to many and you can't segment. So segmentation really happens within influencer media and paid media.
Definitely. Do you, like, knowing sort of, all of the data and insights that MicMac has, do you have advice for marketers on how they could adjust their strategy, between Gen Z and millennials?
So, I mean, from a technology standpoint, like the infrastructure behind what you're going to do to go to market, it's exactly the same. From a content standpoint and a channel standpoint, like that's where it differs. If you're Gen Z, obviously today, like you're spending so much time in TikTok. Mm-hmm. And the thing about TikTok is that it's amazing how personalized it is. Like my TikTok is totally different than my girlfriend's TikTok. And, you know, we live in the same apartment in New York City. And so, I mean, that's just a sure place. You know, Snapchat is obviously still relevant. Instagram DMs are relevant for like a younger community. And then if you're trying to reach like my demographic, which is millennials, like we spend most of our time on Instagram, though it's becoming a little bit less relevant, and we're starting to move to TikTok because TikTok's just a whole lot more interesting. We're on Twitter for politics, and we're really kind of off of Facebook. And then if you move to Gen X and baby boomers, then that's really about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So it depends like who you're going after and where the audience is spending time, but the tactics and the technical infrastructure remain the same. Meaning like you still need the same measurement tools, you still need the same DSP, you still have pixels, you're still segmenting audiences. It just needs to be the content and channel mix that differs.
So for marketers who, you know, aren't necessarily millennials or Gen Z, it can be challenging to really be on top of up and coming platforms, right? Do you have any thoughts, like how do you even, you know, as you sort of get older, make sure that you know what's next?
Hire employees who are younger than you. Like it's as simple as that. You know, for sure, I'm 33 years old. I'm no longer as woke as I once was, but I have so many 22, 23-year-olds who work for us. And like our whole company, we're on Slack. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we have all the work channels that you could imagine, but we also have the non-work channels. Like we have something called Mac Jams for music. We have Gossip Girl for celebrity gossip. And I just get to be a fly on the wall and see what all my employees are discussing. And like, that's how I stay relevant now. I also make like, you know, I probably spend too much time doing one-on-ones with employees, but that's how I get to figure out what's up and what's happening in culture. And when I think about my mentors who are older than me, and I think about why did they choose, you know, they were CEOs, CMOs of the biggest brands in the world, and they were spending time with me when I was 22, 23. It's because they wanted to stay relevant, right? And they saw me as an earpiece for them to do that. And so I would encourage everyone to do the same. It's as easy as that.
Right. It's like a mutually exclusive, you know, like you're kind of getting the expertise and learning from them, and then they're being able to, understand youth culture much better. So I know earlier I talked about the power of ambassadorships, and, you know, working with talent on sort of a more long-term basis. Do you have any advice for how marketers can approach this and really develop, you know, strong relationships with talent and how they should be thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, one, like as a brand, you need to be so clear on what your values are. Like if you were a person, who the hell are you? What do you stand for? What do you value? What would piss you off? Like putting that all on a piece of paper as if you're a brand. And then, you know, the exercise that I like to do for brand partnerships, which is a form of, you know, influencer marketing, is if you were a brand and you were having a dinner party, what other brands would you invite to be at this dinner party?
I love that.
And that's how you can begin to define who your tribe is. And that's the exercise that I think you have to do with influencers or ambassadors. But if this person's going to be the face of your brand, like you really got to dig under the hood. The same way, like when you were hiring like a C-suite employee, like you got to know where the dead bodies are and make sure that this person is like really reflective of what you want your brand to stand for. Because it can, as everyone knows, it can go the wrong way. And so I think being super thoughtful with ambassadorship is important.
Yeah, I love that. one of McMac's offerings is really helping brands understand when it comes to sort of the creator and influencer space, which ones specifically drive commerce. So can you talk a little bit about that and how brands really know if their influencer investment is working?
Yeah. So brands, so big CPG brands license our software, and then they are engaging in influencer marketing. And part of the requirement is, hey, influencer, you have to, use this destination URL. That's us behind the scenes. And so we're able to figure out that the influencer have the ability to drive conversion at which retailers, with which audiences. We also have the ability to pixel the influencer's audience. So you could be a beauty client of mine, let's just say CoverGirl, and in your customer data platform, it could say CoverGirl, Rihanna, let's say they were working with Rihanna, Walmart shoppers, mascara. And that means now CoverGirl owns that audience, and any other time that they want to go to market, they can be leveraging that in their marketing mix. So we do a ton of work with influencers. It's about measurement. We help brands figure out who's driving conversion, who's not, and how to reallocate spend. A lot of my clients, they like to segment their influencers, like the mega influencers, the macro influencers, the micro influencers, and they're using McMac data to then layer on the purchase conversion around that segmentation. So it's really amazing to see how clients are leveraging us with influencers.
And what metric should they be looking to? I mean, obviously the purchase conversion, is there?
So, with us, we measure everything, but the things that will allow you to figure out if this influencer is successful or not for you is, one, we can tell you that time spent. So, did Rihanna drive high quality traffic to this mascara product detail page? How much time did someone spend viewing it? We then can tell you retailer selection. So does Rihanna's audience want to shop at Sephora Ulta? How does that differ by geography? How does that differ by audience? How does that differ by device type? We can get super, super granular. And then did the customer hit add to cart? And then, depending on the retailer, did the purchase actually happen? And what else was in their basket? So the whole shebang, we can be providing you with insight.
Wow. Because you are so, sort of mired in all of this rich data, can you talk about other examples of brands that have used data to inform their strategy? What other types of things are they sort of leaning onto as really valuable?
Yeah. So my favorite case study in the history of McMac is with Healthy Choice, which ConAgra owns. So Healthy Choice, before working with us, they had no idea if they should go to market with plant-based messaging or low-calorie messaging. How does that differ by geography, by retailer? With us, they immediately learned they should go to market with plant-based messaging, especially in the Chicago metro area with Walmart shoppers. The e-com team, who was using McMac, then gave that insight to their shopper marketing team. Their shopper marketing team walks into a meeting with Walmart and literally says, we need to change the messaging at shelf from low calorie to plant-based. When ConAgra told me that was how they were using our data, I pretty much fell off my chair because that's my dream. My dream is for every single person who's in our industry to understand that e-commerce data is a leading indicator for what is going to happen in the rest of your business. That e-commerce data can be used for omni-channel outcomes.
Wow.
And so, if the customer lives in an e-commerce first world, that's the data that you got to be looking at day in and day out.
So talk a little bit more about that, though, that e-commerce data sort of defines the future of your business.
Yeah, so here's another example. Hershey's. Week of March 9th, COVID happens. By March 11th, we were able to see that people don't want to buy gum or mints right now, right? Because all of a sudden we all went inside. We didn't care about our breath. That was e-commerce data that signaled it first. persons, then use that to make better business decisions. And if your organization, because this is what happens in corporate America, it just becomes so siloed. The e-commerce team is like sitting under the sales department. It's completely divorced from marketing. It's completely divorced from influencers. It's completely divorced from finance. But everything that you need to know about your business is happening in real time, first in an e-commerce environment.
So knowing that so many organizations are still organized in, a way that's sort of not as productive as it should be, where do you guys sort of find your champions?
That's 80% of the battle. We go into brands and we establish enterprise relationships. So typically our executive sponsor is a CMO, a chief digital officer, a head of e-commerce. But then my team is charged with getting multiple departments logging into our software. It is our job to make corporate America realize that the CRM team should be looking at this data. The shopper marketing team should be looking at this data. The influencer team, the digital media team. And day in and day out, we're like driving education around this.
Got it. So, obviously a lot of the content and what we spoke about, is the evolution and how rapidly changing e-com has been. Let's sort of look forward 5 years. What do you see as the future of e-commerce?
5 years. 5 years is a big one. I would say in less than 5 years' time, I believe that local is going to become a bigger part of e-com. So think about e-com today. It's very focused on big box retailers, like direct to consumer players, but like all of local businesses is kind of not participated in e-commerce in a significant way. Instacart, Drizzly are actually marketplaces aggregating local retailers. I think you're going to see that happen in every single type of industry. And I believe that last mile delivery is going to be solved. So right now, the unit economics around last mile delivery actually make no sense. So, this is click and collect, pick up in store, or you have someone like an Instacart shopper, Shipt, Postmates, like physically coming to your door. All of those things actually lead to like less profitability. And the only way that this actually will work is with robots. And I truly believe in less than 5 years' time, robots are going to be delivering us our products. And I stand behind that so strongly.
Well, I've seen you make predictions before, and they've come true. So I guess I'll be seeing a robot at my door.
Yeah. And then my other big one is I think that Apple CarPlay is one of the most underutilized media channels right now. And I think a lot's going to happen there. But I especially think that connected commerce and cars are also going to become a very big thing.
So let's actually dig into that because, I know you have talked a lot and I always find it really fascinating about these like untapped platforms and places that marketers should be first. Can you sort of talk about that?
Yeah. So, think about podcasts 3 years ago. Of course, if you had a podcast 3 years ago, you were in the top 10 charts because you had no competition. So any brand or any celebrity or any influencer that started to do podcasts in the past 3 years, like it's gold because they got there first. I would say the same right now for Facebook Messenger. Facebook Messenger is being completely underutilized by brands. There's total white space there. You look at something like TikTok. I brought up Elf Cosmetics, but I just have a lot of heart for them. They were pretty much the first brand to start really using that channel. They were on it 18 months ago. As a result, they're one of the most followed brands on TikTok, right? And that was all free earned media. And so that's how I feel about CarPlay. you look at CarPlay and you're like, wait a second, all I have on here is Waze, Maps, Spotify, and Messenger. Like, there's so much opportunity. And so that's what I always gravitate towards. It's why I built NicMac. I like to go after the unsexy things. You know, I've been doing this now for almost 6 years. COVID didn't happen until week of March 9th. So, you know, now I'm very much in vogue, but 6 years ago I wasn't.
Right. You've seen it all. Awesome. Okay. So I think we only have a few minutes left, Rachel. So I'm just going to go to the audience questions.
Great.
Okay. So what are the top 3 challenges that your brand clients have faced in the past 6 months?
Supply chain is first and foremost. The second would be a lot of dancing around media plans, just given the political landscape. There's been lots of changes and sort of trepidation that they're constantly navigating. And then the third, I would say, is creative, right? Like the traditional ways of creating content went on pause for a good portion of this year. And now, you know, original productions are starting to happen, but they're just happening much more slowly.
Okay. So this question, what brands are doing a good job of using influencer marketing to drive revenue? So I actually, and there's another question asking how Whaler and MicMac work together. But I think these 2 questions are sort of similar. You know, at Whaler, we have seen a lot of success with brands like Burt's Bees and General Mills, really using stunning, compelling organic content from the right creators, and layering on this, you know, seamless e-com solution. So I think like that's kind of the recipe. It's also goes back to what we were saying earlier, where it's really crucial to understand what they're trying to achieve. And in those specific examples, it wasn't necessarily brand awareness. It was literally move these SKUs at Walmart and Target. So making sure, to your earlier point, Rachel, we were casting very much with that lens, with creators who have trained their audiences, with creators who, you know, shop at those places, and live a life where those products make a lot of sense. And then making sure that the content is incredibly shoppable. So for me, those brands are General Mills and Burt's Bees.
Yep. Yeah, they're great examples of shared clients of ours. Yeah, I would say, you know, outside of that, our clients at P&G do a fantastic job, especially the hair care business. So I check out Aussie, Pantene, Head and Shoulders. They really do a fantastic job. In other types of categories, I would look at Lego. You know, toys is an interesting category because you have this added dynamic of not really being able to advertise to kids. So I think it's just an interesting thing to watch how they navigate that. And they're a great partner of ours. And then I would say outside of that, like the pure play D2Cs, when you're launching a pure play direct to consumer brand, you do 2 things when you start: niche paid media targeting and influencer seeding. Like that's it. That's the whole recipe. And not that I'm endorsing this product, but it's definitely a wildly fascinating influencer case study is Fit Tea. It's this diet tea drink. This company, when they came out, they took all the pennies they had and they gave it to the Kardashians. They gave it to other major celebrities. And they went mega influencer seeding, and that thing started to pop. And then they went micro seeding, and their whole business, which is now a several multi-million-dollar Fit Tea business, has been driven via influencer acquisition.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example. What is one thing you want to do more of into 2020?
You got 3 months left. Things I want to do more of in 2020. So the world has changed this year. And it's wild to think about the things that I say this year that I wouldn't have said in the past. But brand.com, so like dove.com, pop-tarts.com. It's really wild to see the increase in organic search traffic that's happened on our brand partners' websites. And we are going to be bringing commerce to our partners' brand.coms in a really big way. So by the end of 2020, you're going to see a lot more of Micmac in those environments. So I would say that's what I want to do more of, is take everything that we built for media and influencers and now also bring it to brand.com.
Love that. What's been your most successful marketing program or program partnership?
I've been building this company for 6 years, but I pivoted halfway through. So the software that we have in market has pretty much been in market for 3.5 years. And I'm proud to say that some of my earliest clients are still my clients. Now they're my biggest clients. So L'Oreal, I work with L'Oreal, I work with Unilever, I work with P&G, I work with Keurig Dr. Pepper, I work with Lego. Like, I think it says a lot that I've been working with these major companies for 3.5 years. And it's just wild to see how their e-commerce growth has paralleled with the growth of my company.
How have you specifically been managing and navigating your business because of all of this change, right? So how have you sort of been like pivoting your customer strategies, employee engagement over the last few months?
Yeah. On the customer front, in many ways, COVID has actually made things easier because I used to spend too many hours on a plane every week, right? Like, our clients are everywhere. Now I sit right here. I can do 12 client meetings. I can do 3 webinars. Like, it's amazing, the efficiency. And also it's just so much more intimate. Like, I'm in my clients' homes. So that's been actually really amazing. On the marketing front, like, used to meet clients at conferences like this, brand innovators, that would happen in real life. Now you have to do a lot more content marketing when you're sort of a service provider like Whaler or Micmac. So that's been a little bit of an adjustment, but also a fun one. The employee side, that's the hardest part. My company has doubled in size since the week of March 9th. I now have more new people than I have old people, meaning the majority of my employees have never met me in real life. The majority of my employees never stepped foot in a Micmac physical office.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's unprecedented, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's really hard. And I spend so much of like my emotional energy thinking about this. I think we're doing a decent job, but there's so much room to grow. And I just am constantly asking employees for feedback because that's how we get better.
So I think, a lot of businesses are struggling with that same challenge. Have you found specific like tactics that have worked just to sort of raise morale or make people feel a part of the team?
Yeah. It's kind of like organized speed dating. So we've like institutionalized it so people can like get to know each other. Like, Zoom breakout rooms are awesome for this. You kind of give everyone a shared topic and then they get to like discuss it. And then you kind of come back as a bigger group and you share what you learned about your partner so we can all like learn about each other at scale. We've done things like that. I brought in like really fun people. Like, there's this influencer / magician called Foodie Magician. If you follow him on Instagram, he's really hysterical. Josh Beckerman. I brought him in. He did like this crazy mentalist show all via Zoom. We brought in all different types of fitness people, breathing instructors, chefs to do cooking classes. I mean, like, you kind of name it, and I've been trying it. I created custom Nikes for everyone that say Micmac on them. Like, you just gotta like get creative. And I think one of the best things that I did is there's a woman that supports me. Her name's Allie. And she's like in her early 20s, but she studied organizational design in college. And I've just totally empowered her to like own this. And it's amazing. Like, when you empower your employees, when what you're giving them aligns with their passions, like, they just take it to places that you could never do. And I really have to give like a lot of credit to this woman, Allie, who works for me, who came in to essentially be my assistant. And now I've turned her into like the Micmac employee experience person. And it's been amazing.
I love it. I've dealt with Allie. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Congratulations. Does Micmac work with talent management companies?
Not contractually. So our clients are the ones who do those deals, and they just bring us in as the commerce layer.
Got it. Okay, so I think this is probably a good question to end on, Rachel. What's on the horizon for Micmac?
A lot of data enrichments. I want to be able to tell you everything about your customers. So way more data is coming into our system, and international expansion.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
What sort of timeline?
Well, we're already working like in Canada and EMEA, but in just a much bigger way, like more boots on the ground, making really big investments in those areas.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you, Rachel. It was so great chatting with you. It always is.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is so fun.
So awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I love having you on stage. And Rachel, I could listen to the two of you guys talk forever, seriously. So please come back. Let's do round two. Maybe it's a little bit later in Q4 or even the start of Q1 and hear what you guys are up to.
I love that. Thanks.
Love that.
Yeah, we'd love it too. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. All right, guys. Well, cool. Well, that was an awesome start to the afternoon. So again, special thanks to both Megan and Rachel. It was a pleasure to have them. And now on to our next session. So I'd love to introduce you to Liz Tunn. She is the head of shopper marketing specialty division at Clorox Company. And her moderator today is going to be Susan Bagley, the director of sales at Viacom CBS. So welcome, ladies. Just getting on here.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hey, how are you guys?
Fantastic. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Well, I'll let you guys kick off, and David, my colleague, will actually be jumping on towards the end, and he'll help you guys wrap things up.
Great. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Liz, how are you?
You look good, Susan. I put pants on today for the first time.
I did too, just for you. So hopefully no one that I live with is offended that you were worthy and they were not. You look good too.
Thanks.
I'm excited to chat with you today. I've obviously enjoyed our talks to date, and I'm always excited to talk about Shopper. I think the landscape is shifting so quickly, which we've talked about. So that said, I'd love to just dive right in if you're okay with that.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So thank you so much for doing this with me, and thanks for Brand Innovators for having us. For everybody that's tuning in, my name's Susan Bagley. I'm the Director of Sales at Viacom CBS in the Shopper Marketing Division. Myself and my team are based here in Bentonville, Arkansas. And we're focused on making clients' marketing plans come to life at retail, and that's whether that be on the store or digitally. And I'm really excited to have Liz here to talk about Shopper with me today. So Liz, why don't you go ahead and take a couple minutes to introduce yourself and talk about your role at Clorox.
Yes, I am the head of shopper marketing for the specialty division, and that is basically all the brands that are not cleaning related, which, as you can imagine, is somewhat of a relief these days. The brands that I oversee then in terms of shopper are Fresh Step, Brita, Glad, Kingsford, and Hidden Valley Ranch. And essentially what I'm doing is helping drive conversion. It's part of the marketing mix across all those different brands. It's an awesome role and really exciting these days.
Awesome. And how long have you been with Clorox?
I've been at Clorox for 10 years now.
Okay. Wow. Quite a milestone. Congrats.
Thank you.
I think that, when we talked prior to this session, I was really excited that you wanted to talk about some forward thinking stuff as we start to look to 2021. All of us as shopper marketers know that the times right now are hard. plans are changing constantly. We're trying to evolve all the time. And I was really excited that you're willing to talk to us a little bit about how Clorox is shifting. I know that you guys are changing your reconfiguration of how the sales and marketing is working together to create stronger, more integrated shopper plans, with the goal that those plans will obviously bring more return on investment, more conversion, more return on effort across the Clorox portfolio. Can you expand and tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing just to set the stage for the conversation?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people here on this call, if you're in CPG, are experiencing a very similar thing that Clorox has, which is that our sales and marketing functions are different functions. And because of that, shopper marketing spans both of those functions, and it's really difficult to ensure that we are integrating and working cohesively together when both functions have different masters, different objectives, different budgets and timelines. And so in order for us to really come forward with the best shopper plans, we need to be coordinating in a way that we haven't ever before.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. And I'd imagine that if everybody's camera was on that isn't shopper, the retail world, they'd all be nodding yes. Whether you're a brand or an agency or a service provider, we've all experienced a lot of that. With all of that in mind and everything that's going on in 2020, why is Clorox making this change now? Like what's leading to this? Because there's obviously already a lot of change. So why is it so important to do this now?
Yeah, I'll set the stage first by explaining how Clorox is even structured. I think that'll give you the context to my rationale. I do sit on the marketing side. So national shopper marketing is part of the conversion element of the marketing mix. Whereas I've got retailer teams on the sales function who have shopper marketers within each of those retailer teams. And those shopper marketers are supporting our brand plans for every retailer. So retailer specific plans versus my retailer agnostic national plans that are on this side. And so because we are on two sides of the shopper coin, it's really important that we are connecting so that my national tactics resonate at retail, and those retailer plans make sense for what I'm doing nationally. We're not redundant. We are bridging any gaps that might exist. And so that's why it's more important. It's really important that we're doing that. Why now? It's time. I feel like this is an age-old conversation that's been going on for literally decades in terms of like, why is it that our plans are not coming together better than they could be? Why is it that we keep missing out on pulse activations or, being suboptimal in the way that we are coming to life through marketing and sales? And it's just a matter of, things are moving so quickly. I feel like shopper is now moving into media. Shopper's moving now into social content and digital. And so the coordination that is required to ensure that all of these pieces are fitting together are more important than ever.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but I believe part of the vision, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's also a great reduction in resources if you're able to kind of zipper all this up together in a pretty package. Oftentimes in the shopper world, we find that we're doing work over work over work, and the agencies are doing work, brands are doing work, partners are doing work, and it is really, really redundant. So yes, I think now is extremely important. And I think that we have an example of a Brita campaign that Brand Innovators was going to pop up on the screen for us. So you could talk through a real life example of like how this comes to life, some issues that you faced with the silos and why that didn't work. So can they go ahead and pop that up for us? Yes, no? Okay. Well, imagine a beautiful picture of Brita, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the campaign and what happened and what you guys were thinking and the feedback that you got in the marketplace.
Yeah, there are a number of bad outcomes that can come by not coordinating sales and marketing efforts. The example that I was going to share is about advertising and about how if we aren't talking, then the national advertising, our messaging, our look and feel might end up looking very different from what's happening at retail. And certainly that is not a best practice. That's not something that we want to strive for. So Brita, their purpose is all about going against single-use plastic bottled water waste. and positioning Brita as a better source of water that's going to be better for your health and better for the planet. And we decided from a marketing strategy to be very provocative in communicating that message. And so visualize with me, our print ads, as an example, are these very hard-hitting images of waste, of bottled waters trashing our planet on beaches and the bottom of our ocean floors versus beautiful Brita. That is a better solution. Now imagine taking that message to retail and imagine that you're pushing to have that same communication come to life in store. Retailers love bottled water, and for a very good reason. It's a loss leader for them. It drives traffic to their stores. And so by no means do they want to be denigrating bottled water. And so we had to work really closely with them and figure out how do we actually translate that brand purpose and our hard-hitting advertising to a retailer's needs so that they will be willing to support us in store. And so by working with those retailers, we were able to understand what really makes them excited. It's about talking about the pulse, the times of year during which they want to be promoting Brita and making sure that our messaging aligns with those pulses. It's about speaking to shopper insights, and Walmart, as an example, their shoppers are all about value. So making sure that we've got a message that's strongly targeted on value. Or the Whole Foods shopper, that's all about purpose, and they want to hear about sustainability in a way that really would drive them to purchase one brand over another. And so we took that purpose message that we had on Brita against single-use plastic waste, and we brought that to life through different channels, through value, through sustainability, and through pulse, in a way that then was balancing the needs of everyone and ensuring that we are able to bring that message to life at retail.
Fantastic. Can you just give me a little bit of feedback on, how do you balance the needs of the brands, the retailers, when you guys are creating the messaging and doing the planning on the upfront side so that all the needs of the parties are balanced? And the same question goes also for sales and marketing, right? Because we know that we have this struggle of sales has a particular point of view because they're trying to serve their customer, but marketing is often speaking to, like to your point, the larger feeling or purpose or passion of the brand. And how do you balance all of those needs to create a comprehensive plan that works for everybody?
There's so many answers in that one question. Yeah. I think what's really important, which we hadn't done for a while on Clorox, and we're certainly doing now, is making sure that our planning process starts at the point of strategy and not at the executional point. I think, if you look at the old world at Clorox, we would be basically doing our national plans in a silo, throwing them over the fence to the field and saying, hey, fields, here are plans, work with them, work around them, figure out what to do. And that certainly didn't work. Things were done in a silo. They were not anchored to the same objectives, insights, and strategies that our brand was. And because of that, they were that starting point, because it was missing, they were going off and creating their own stuff. And so if we all start from the beginning of planning, when we're anchoring to the same objective, the same priorities and strategies, and the same shopper insights for the brand, as well as for the retailer, that's where you get the gold. Because like I said from the beginning, the retailers, our shopper teams, they're working against different masters, and their retailers are pushing them towards different goals, sales goals, objectives, etc. And so when we can start up front and say, here's how we have to think about synergizing and balancing those different potentially conflicting objectives and insights and priorities, then we're going to be working from the same songbook and build plans that feel more cohesive from the beginning.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I know we didn't talk about this before, but do you have any other examples besides Brita or things that you're working on now where you've started up front and you can really see that cohesiveness coming together? Or is that not something you can share yet?
Let me think about that. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. There's a lot of stuff in the works on all brands, except I think I'm just going to leave it with Brita for the moment.
That's totally fair. Personally, being fortunate in two ways, I think, in this discussion. One is that I've worked with Clorox, and two is that I live in the CPG capital of the United States. Clorox is known for being really innovative, a really big leader in the CPG space. So it makes sense to me that you guys are, I would say, even though this is, maybe we've been talking about it for 10 years, you guys are ahead of trends because you're actually making the changes. So how are you adjusting the actual structure to accommodate national marketing and retailer marketing?
Yeah. So before I get into the solutions, I will say that when we're not coordinating between each other, there are a number of other issues that can come to bear, and this is what we're addressing. Another piece is the timing. Like, that is so big, and I'm sure you guys are feeling that in your everyday lives, that our marketing planning process happens too late. It simply does. And because of that, because we're not thinking about anchoring our planning timelines to sales deadlines, we are missing out on opportunities where we can be getting incremental support from the retailers. So that's a really big one. How do we get ahead of timing? Another one is just around resources. And you began to talk about this, Susan, but when we're not coordinating up front and bringing all the right people to the table at the beginning, you start getting plans that are created in a vacuum. You've got sales teams who are using their own agencies, their own resources, their time and energy and dollars to create assets that look different from us. We're all parallel pathing stuff. You're doubling down on the costs and the time and resources and effort. And that's not good either. So the structure that we are putting together at Clorox is addressing those issues. So what are we doing? A big part, again, is just really identifying who are the right people to bring into the room early on. And, you know, I've mentioned that we've got Shopper now that's proliferating across the marketing world. Shoppers now in media, shoppers now in content, social and digital. And so bringing the media leads, the content leads, our sales people, our sales planners, who are the people managing the assortment and the pricing, all those types of things, as well as our national teams together, is going to be really important. It's also really important that we understand what the sales deadlines actually are. So we have sales releases every twice a year, as I'm sure many of you do too, where we have big formal bulletins and share outs with the field on what's going on in the brand side. And that's a time where we need to be making sure that our marketing timing is lined up such that we have our plans ready to share during those big share outs and those big releases. Another piece is just understanding, what does the field even need from us? Like, what details from the marketing team are going to be important to unlock that support that we wouldn't otherwise get? And that was a huge aha for us, because whenever we talked about making sure that the retailer teams have the marketing efforts, marketing plans that we needed, the marketing team would kind of freak out and they'd say, what are you saying? We have to plan a year out? We have to everything buttoned up a year out? So many things can change in the world. It just doesn't seem logical to do that. But the reality is that oftentimes the field doesn't need all those details. They need 20% of those details. They need a lot of details that you're anniversarying every year anyway. What is the aggregated spend with a 10% fluctuation? What are the key pulses you want to be supporting? What innovations are in the pipeline? Things that are very high level and easy to deliver to the field, we should be delivering to the field. So it's knowing your content and what to deliver, when to deliver it, and then getting the right people in place to ensure that you can get all of those details together.
I think that's great. And how do you guys go about acquiring the information on what you need to put together for the field? Are you building that into the overall timeline, or are you just having a constant conversation with the verticals that support the different retailers to say, where are you at from a timing perspective? Are you creating kind of like one big calendar? How does that work?
It is one big master calendar. We do have universal deadlines for sales. Like I said, like fall planning happens every year for all the brands at a certain time of year. Our sales release happen every time at a certain time of year, as I'm sure it happens with all CPG brands. And so from there, I look at every single brand and I say, are these the milestones that you guys work against? Is there a Walmart line review that's more important to you that you need to be working against? Are there shelf resets? Like, what are the things that are most important to you, and when are those things happening? And then once you can identify by brand what those deadlines are, you can work backwards to figure out, so what does that mean when marketing has to kick off, the marketing planning process?
Makes sense. Thank you. And before I get to my next question, I'm already having some stuff pop up in the Q&A. So if you don't mind, you mentioned that Shopper is starting to move into media. We have a participant who would love to hear you elaborate on that, what that looks like, excuse me, for you at Clorox, and where you think that's going in the future. So I totally agree with you on that, because we are seeing them merge together, but I think that probably peaked a few ears whenever you said that.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, what a trend. I'm sure we're all facing this right now, and I think we're all trying to figure this out right now. We've got 3 different parties who touch Shopper media, and that is alone crazy. Like, we've got the national Shopper team, where we are buying on third-party platforms like Velasas or Quotient. We've got our OMD team, agency, supporting our national media efforts. And they are also sometimes on the hook for conversion objectives, where they're also buying on those same platforms. We also have, just in the most clear slicing of all of this, our Shopper teams that have their own platforms: Kroger Performance Media, WMG, Roundel, Amazon. And so we are actually in a process right now. There's a point of view that's being shared out as we speak, actually, around how we go about coordinating those buys. We've identified basically who are the retailers where we understand that they are going to be the most efficient and we can spend endlessly with them. Like, which retailer platforms might those be? What is tier 2 of those retailer platforms, where we say, you know what, let's lean in a little bit. They're not entirely proven yet, but we think that there's something there. We're also looking at the split between OMD and our Shopper agency. Like, who should be buying our Shopper media right now? Is it more efficient if it goes through our media team? Is it more efficient if it goes through our Shopper team, because they're grounded on the insights? So there's no magic pill, unfortunately, for this. I think it's about coordinating a lot and talking a lot. But at least we are making headway into identifying how do we even spend in the most efficient way based on what we understand from our retailer platforms and other media platforms.
That's a great answer. Has the situation with the remote working and the pandemic hurt you guys making this change, or has it helped in terms of communication and having to do it all over screens and not being able to get in a room? What's your view?
I think, I popped on at the end of that last call that was just happening before this, and I think it's the same. There's definitely a benefit to being virtual in the sense that you are always on. There's a pro and a con to that, obviously. And you can access anybody at any point. And so in many ways, we can be more seamless in the way that we're communicating, and more quick in the way that we are getting in touch with each other and making things happen more quickly.
Interesting. I like to hear your perspective on that. Totally agree. There's pros and cons, but I think that there's going to be a lot of benefits in terms of how people work together going forward, even once we get everything figured out eventually. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So with all of these rich insights that you're giving us in terms of your seismic shift over to a unified planning situation, what advice would you give to other companies or CPGs, or maybe just shopper teams that are really trying to make a change like this or champion a change in their organization, because they have the same frustrations that you mentioned? They've dealt with the redundancy and the late timelines and the messaging that's inconsistent. And so what would your advice be about how do you tackle this?
Yeah, I think the first one is really about building those relationships between sales and marketing. It was really weird, and this actually goes to your question about virtual working. I think, in the old world, for some reason, this division that I was in marketing and they were in sales just made it hard for us to stay connected. And there's no reason for it. Like, we're all working for the same company. And maybe in the virtual world, it kind of helps. We're all virtual and we all have to make the point of reaching out. And so we forced that. Like years ago, we just forced that relationship and made sure that people were building trust with each other, and that our sales counterparts and our marketing counterparts knew that we were all in this together. We were one shopper team working towards one shopper plan. And so making sure that that partnership is solid is going to be number one, really important. Through that partnership, I think the second point is to make sure that you are really clear on what makes each other excited. Like, what is it that is going to be important to enable you guys to do your jobs most effectively? And that goes to what details are needed by when from the field so that marketing can get those things to the field when they need them, because that's what's going to unlock growth. And then the third is timing. As part of the when piece, like really then making that seismic shift and saying, okay, there is a systemic change that has to happen. You know, I was before this role, when I'm now supporting the entire division, I was on a specific brand, and I was working in my own silo trying to make this happen for the brand and force the timelines and force the content. But you can only make so much of an impact on the business, obviously, when you're doing it for one brand. And so it's really important that you're elevating this perspective and getting it into the right people's heads, getting their head nods from a senior leadership standpoint so that everyone is working together, both from the sales side and marketing side, and pushing down this point of view to make sure that it's in place and systemically in place.
That's great feedback. And I actually love what you said about now everybody's working virtually. So maybe it's in some aspects made things a little bit easier. Because, you know, I hear a lot from clients and a lot from, you know, CPG suppliers that sales and marketing, there's there's so much rub between the two groups. And I think you said it so perfectly, is that there doesn't need to be, and we're all marching toward the same goal. So how do you continue to collaborate and break that down? And to your point, really amplify your impact beyond, you know, whatever your specific campaign that you're working on at that time. I think that's hugely important. And before we have a little bit of time here, but before we get into Q&A, I would love to hear your predictions for your vertical for 2021. What do you think the key focus areas are? What are you looking at? What do you think it's important that people consider as they are, you know, trying to be nimble and flexible with their plans because of the environment that we're in? But what are the things that are definitely must-haves as we're looking into 2021?
Yeah, omnichannel is the buzzword. I think that it is more important than ever. You know, it was important before, but now with the explosion of COVID and the disruption in how people are shopping, making sure that your brands are present in e-com channels is going to be more critical than ever. And to that point, it's also important that we are finding ways to emulate that in-store experience online. So this is something that I think a lot of people are trying to figure out right now, but you can't do retailtainment anymore. You can't do demos anymore in the way that we did before. And so how do you create the surprise and delight online that used to exist in store? And then how do you also ensure that you are delivering the right content to make shopping really easy in a world that might not have traditionally been a place where people would buy certain things? Like for categories that require more research and more development, where you really do want to be touching and feeling the items that they require more high involvement. How do you create the content to make them feel confident that they're still buying something when they don't have that opportunity to be touching and feeling stuff? So that's one piece. An example of that on Kingsford, actually, we had this big tour. It's called the Smokehouse Tour, and it's in partnership with Walmart. It's supposed to happen all summer long, spring through the summer, where we are going to be traveling to 16 cities across the country in Walmart parking lots and having a huge set of chefs and influencers who are going to be cooking up a storm and providing awesome inspiration and content and drawing a lot of people from the awesome smell of barbecue happening. Obviously also promoting Kingsford. But then COVID hit and we had to put that entire thing to a halt. But we made it virtual. We actually found a way to translate that whole experience online by getting certain influencers on board and by hooking up with the right social channels to ensure that we were getting the right content where people are looking for it. And it's actually been extremely successful. So it just came to an end last week, but that has been a great case study for us and how we're able to take something that was once in store and bring it online.
That's really, I feel like a lot of people might be asking you about that solution because people are already asking in the Q&A that since we can't do demos and retailtainment, you know, what do you plan or what have you done to swap out, the reliance on the in-store demos, especially with big box. That's such a key piece of, the marketing mix. And so the Kingsford example sounds amazing. And do you guys have any other plans or anything else in the works to replace demos?
I do. There are a couple things going on. Obviously, as we think about Omni and online grocery pickup, that is an area where a lot of retailers are scrambling to figure out how do we transfer the demo experience to e-com and OGP, online grocery pickup. And so that's where we're pivoting. We're spending a lot more in that space where people are getting their groceries delivered to them with a few samples that are included. We are also looking at a vendor called Freosk that actually, they're in store. They're only at Walmart and Sam's, but it is touchless demoing, which is great for a number of ways. It's a lot more cost efficient, and also it's a lot safer. And then also there's obviously influencers. We continue to use them as a way to, get our samples into the right hands. And that can also have so many benefits around then driving ratings and reviews and other just amplifying content.
Definitely. And influencers, obviously, considering what I do, that's something that we support. And we have seen a lot of success to transitioning events to be held virtually. And it's surprising, when you have great partnerships and you're committed to finding a solution, that people are still engaged because they want to do things. They're looking for that touch point. It's just getting it right is highly crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Highly, highly crucial. So the push to emulate the in-store online, and then what about in-store? I know that's a huge, I think, buzz situation discussion in the industry right now, because essential areas such as grocery stores, Walmart, Mass, they're going to continue to be open and continue to be an opportunity for some sort of interaction. You mentioned Freosk. Is there anything else from your point of view that people should be thinking about for 2021 to integrate?
I think the key to in-store is ensuring safety. And this has been some insights that I've seen around what people are prioritizing now when they choose the retailers where they shop. And safety is now number one. Like, which store is going to limit the people who go in? Which store is going to have just the right safety protocols in place to ensure that the experience is going to be as healthy as possible. The fact is, people aren't lingering in stores as they used to. And so our investment in store has narrowed. It's actually been pivoted over to social and digital, as we talked about. And also, I think the key here is really just to ensure that we make the experience as easy as possible for them to choose the products that are going to be what they need. And that's by delivering the right content in the right places and disrupting them with the easiest solutions to allow them to get in and out of the store.
Perfect. And to build on that, I just had somebody jump in and ask how your budgets have been affected as you guys have moved, the marketing comms from in-person to virtual, e-com, digital, or whatever type of experience you're having. How heavy have you guys shifted?
Our budgets have remained relatively flat, actually. So they haven't increased or decreased. The money has just shifted to different places.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. If not, the person who asked it in Q&A can bounce in and have me clarify. I think that's really important feedback, and I think that there, are constantly new ways to reach customers. It's just about, communication, being open, being willing to try new things, and to your point, finding partners and finding the right ways to go after consumers, because safety is, now number one. And there's a lot of fear and a lot of not knowing what things are going to be. So I like hearing your feedback on that.
I mean, there's a whole other dynamic that happened that we all experienced during this whole period, and that was this whole Facebook issue and companies boycotting marketing on those platforms. And so that has also caused changes and pivots and made us really take advantage of this time to lean in and try new platforms that we hadn't traditionally used: Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat. And
Sure.
those platforms are also coming up with some awesome shoppable experiences to really collapse that funnel. So those are the things that we're experiencing now and exploring that could have some big benefits on the back end.
That's really good advice. I think that the Facebook and Instagram ban, which I know Clorox has participated in until the end of the year, what's been the biggest surprise in terms of like a platform or something that you've used that you typically wouldn't? What's been the most surprising thing? Platform or service or other thing that you have pivoted that you normally wouldn't have even looked at?
Yeah, Pinterest has become a very safe place. I wouldn't say that this was like a place where we didn't exist before and now we're there. It was something we dabbled in, but we didn't feel like it had the scale, obviously, at Facebook and Instagram too. And so for that reason, we didn't spend as much. But given the situation, as we lean in and explore shoppable pins and realize just how topical that channel is for people doing research and looking for inspiration and helping build their shopping list when it comes to recipes or party planning or cleaning, like whatever it might be. We are finding that there's a utility on Pinterest that is extremely valuable for us. And I do anticipate that we'll continue to spend there because we're reaching the people we want to be reaching on that channel.
Great feedback. I'm going to officially open it up to the Q&A portion now, even though I've been peppering them in because people couldn't wait. So one coming up now is, how are you thinking about anniversarying programs or initiatives going into 2021, given the unpredictable nature and impact of 2020? So especially in the areas that had the huge surge of demand, several areas of your business, I know not cleaning, but how's Clorox kind of thinking about that? And what does that look like in a year or 2 years?
Yeah, certainly. I think I just saw a study come out that says across CPG, we're all experiencing a huge surge in volume across all of our categories, not just cleaning, but everyone's just buying brands that they trust right now, and they are stockpiling like crazy. And because of that, I think all of us are seeing a surge in household pen, which is amazing. We've got a lot of new users coming in. And because of that, whereas before COVID, when it was sort of status quo, we were focusing a lot on retention and obviously also focusing on household pen. There's a really big push now with all these new people coming in and ensuring that we are finding ways to keep them in, whether that's through different loyalty strategies, whether that's through just pumping them with the right content. Personalization is a whole new area that we are really doubling down on at Clorox, and identifying who these people are that have now entered and what inspiration do they need? What kind of content is going to be important for them to continue to come back to our brands is an area that we're definitely focusing on. And I think digital, like I said, e-com is here to stay. So as we think about leaning into social and digital and e-com, that's going to just continue to stay. I think we'll swing back a little bit with in-store. I think that's still an area where we want to be disrupting people when we're ready to come back and linger more and be more receptive to our messaging and our different promotions in store. But for now, I think that this has really catapulted the pace by which we are moving into the next direction. And I think a lot of that is going to stay.
I completely agree with you. I feel like it took us like forward 5 years or 8 years in a 6 to 7 month span, which is very interesting, but cool in some way, right? Because we're learning and growing as fast as humanly possible. Next question is, how many people have asked you for Clorox wipes during COVID?
You are multiple have asked me today, actually. Yes, it happens all the time. And it's funny, my husband works in product supply for Clorox on the cleaning side, so he is really getting that question all the time. I wish I could say that I even had a stockpile because of my insider access, but I don't. So you just have to keep looking. It is getting shipped every day. It's just getting purchased every day by a lot of people waiting and looking for it.
That is hilarious. Amazing. That said, is there anything else that you would like to add, other advice, anecdotes for people looking to 2020 or, holiday, or anything else interesting that you see from a shopper perspective including, are there other brands you think are doing things really well that you've noticed, or your personal favorites, anything like that?
Yeah, I think God, this isn't even just Shopper. You know what I have to say? I just want to call it one brand because I think they're doing an awesome job, and this is just a general marketing statement. It's Coors, and I just saw an ad for them. They've got a promotion going on. I don't know if someone from Coors on the phone. It's so timely, and it's all about us working from home and being on Zoom all the time. And they've got a promotion that's happening that's about winning a trip to your background, your virtual background, because people have like mountainscapes or the Golden Gate Bridge or a beautiful tropical place. And it's about offering some escapism in a time when people feel completely stuck in their worlds and their lives and their houses.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was extremely insightful, and I just want to applaud that one. From a shopper standpoint, I think we are all challenged in different ways. Allocation is a huge issue, like sellouts and being out of stock and inventory problems. I do want to also shout out Clorox Cleaning. Like, that brand has been, I mean, you just said it, the person who asked about wipes. We've got a lot of products that are out of stock right now. And so we've pivoted our messaging obviously to be less about trial driving, conversion driving offers, and more about education and really speaking to people where they are, where they have a lot of concerns, where they are learning how to use Clorox products and how to be safe in this world. And so it's all about making sure that we're grounded on insights and really being clear on what's happening right now and speaking in those moments. I think that speaks to both Coors as well as Clorox.
Great example. Hilarious too. I have somebody who would like some advice, in your opinion, on how does a challenger brand be successful in terms of reaching consumers when they may not have the brand or the budgets that Clorox is able to bring to the table? What are the most important things that they should be looking at to reach their audience and do it effectively, possibly on a smaller budget with smaller reach? Do you have any advice?
I do. This is so funny. I think that the way that this question's positioned is as if that challenger brand is disadvantaged. But I've got to say, there are a lot of really big brands like Clorox that are looking at these challenger brands for advice and guidance on how we are more nimble and agile and how we reach our consumers. If you just look at D2C brands like Casper or Rothy's or brands that are just really present on social, I find that scrappiness to be so authentic and really, really effective. If you have limited dollars, I don't think you need to be spending on TV or in store necessarily. Like, if you've got a D2C channel and you're able to promote yourself through digital and social channels and through influencers and through smaller budget, scrappy content, I think that there's a way that you're connecting to the brand in a very valuable way that is going to speak to consumers. And I think that that's, like I said, what a lot of our Clorox brands are actually trying to figure out how to do now. How do you unravel some of the traditional CPG brand marketing that we've done and be more like the current brands and the really hot brands that are growing?
That's really, really good advice. I hope everybody who's watching is taking notes. And I think we have time just for probably one more question. So someone would like your perspective on retail media, which you did mention earlier a little bit. So that takes into account the WMG, the Roundel, the Dollar General, places with their own specific media networks. How is Clorox looking at those as part of their overall media mix? And how important is that to the brands?
Extremely important to the brands for two really main reasons. The first is that sometimes those platforms are far more efficient from a spend standpoint than going through third parties or going programmatically. And so we want to obviously achieve that efficiency that we can get. The other piece is that when these retailer teams are spending on their own platforms, there's retailer credit that gets unlocked, and that enables us to have incremental support that we wouldn't otherwise have. So we are really looking at that right now and understanding, so how do we balance this all? How do we think about the right places to spend on retailer platforms, which might sometimes be more expensive, versus through national media or through third-party shopper platforms? And that's the work that's underway right now. We have some perspective on which of the top tier retailers we think that we feel safe spending as much as we want with because they are proven. We've had a lot of years testing with them and seeing just consistently a very high efficiency when we spend with those retailer platforms. And then we have some that we are calling tier 2, which is, okay, we'll lean into these and we'll continue to test them. There's promise and they're growing and their capabilities are getting a lot tighter and stronger. So let's consider this as a test and learn and spend a little bit here and there and begin to accumulate some benchmarks and results so that we can potentially move them up to tier 2. And then for all the other ones, spend more efficiently through programmatic or through, specific shopper platforms. So it isn't a clear, we don't have a clear checklist on the steps that you have to take, but it's all about testing and learning and then taking those learnings and proving out what is going to, where you can lean in. And then coordinating that across all the tables with people who are developing media plans.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the feedback. Really appreciate the time today, and I'm sure everybody does who's doing as well. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and to Brand Innovators for hosting. And it was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Susan, nice to meet you, and it's nice to share some thoughts too with everyone.
Absolutely.
This was great. Thank you both. I'm obviously not Lauren. I'm David, the Chief Content Officer here. We're tag teaming today. So thank you so much. I'm going to be emceeing the rest of today's program, but this was phenomenal. Really appreciate your time. You guys have such a great rapport. We're going to have you back for round 2. This was fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, we're going to continue. We've got 2 more great sessions this afternoon, continuing today's discussions around Shopper. And we have Diane Lee, the Associate Director of Shopper Marketing for Avocados from Mexico. I think I see her joining in now. We have Mike Swart from Viacom CBS joining us as well. While they 2 log in, I will just give a little bit of a shout out. If you're going to be joining us tomorrow, we have our Women in Sports program, which is looking pretty phenomenal. So don't miss that one. Hey, Mike, how you doing? I'm not getting your audio, Mike. Hi, Diane.
Hi. We troubleshot my audio. I'm on.
I'm glad.
Hi,
can you guys hear me as well?
We can hear you.
Hi, Mike.
So I will bow out. The virtual stage is yours. Mike and Diane, thank you so much for being here. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, David, and thank you to Susan and Liz. That was a great session that just happened before us. So very insightful, very interesting. I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Mike Swart, and I'm the head of Shopper Marketing at Viacom CBS, where we create content and experiences that drive retail-specific engagements and transactions. I'm pleased to introduce our guest, Diane Lay, Associate Director of National Shopper Marketing and Partnerships at Avocados from Mexico. Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for joining. I was hoping you'd share a bit about your role and experiences with the audience.
Yes. Hi, Mike. Well, I've been at Avocados from Mexico for a little over 5 years now. I'm responsible for leading shopper marketing as well as our insights and analytics team. So some key focus areas for my team is strategic planning, development, and also execution of omni-channel shopper programs, but also working on with insights and analytics, building out that discipline for analytics and then shopper insights, as that's still fairly new at AFM, but we're building that discipline out, and which is very excited about that area. And then prior to Avocados from Mexico, I was actually at Keurig Dr. Pepper for 10 years in a wide variety of roles, from brand to shopper marketing and insights.
Yeah, it's got to be quite different moving from a nationally recognized brand like KDP or Dr. Pepper and now working on an industry group like Avocados from Mexico. Do you have any interesting contrast between the two?
Yeah, for sure. There definitely is. Essentially, it's a very similar approach. I think from our side, we still target shoppers, influence shoppers along that path to purchase, similar approach. But with Dr. Pepper, as you know, there's so much history behind that brand. There's equity, you know, being invented in 1885. There's just a lot of brand love associated with that, really, you know, that brand. But with Avocados from Mexico, we're actually marketing in a nameless category, produce, right? When you think of produce, you don't necessarily think about brands and his history and things like that. So we really focus on driving that demand and also building equity for Avocados from Mexico. Especially our team, we're focused on driving that short-term volume and then also building that longer term for the category growth. So with us, I think we are very lucky. We have 80% share of the market. And as our category grows, as we grow, the category grows. And with our category and also with our brand, we are actually governed by the USDA. We have USDA oversight. So just interesting enough, everything that we do, we have to route it through them, and they definitely oversee everything that we do. So we make sure that how we're communicating to consumers are definitely accurate and that we're sharing the best information that we have.
Wow, that's interesting, and it's complex, huh? I mean, it's it's things that, you know, in my marketing experience, I haven't had to think about, and you're doing a bang-up job because, you know, I for one, as a focus group of one, I'm a big fan of avocados. We always have avocados in the house, and in fact, I want to go a little off script a minute, and I'm going to encourage the audience. I'm going to ask you first, Diane, but I'm going to encourage the audience also to answer this next question. What is your most interesting or favorite recipe with avocados? And again, if the audience will throw it into the chat box, I'll read off a couple of interesting ones here at the end. But Diane, I'll kick it off. We like to put a poached egg on top of a piece of sourdough toast that has the avocado mashed in it. So how about you?
Yeah, for me, it's actually one of my recipes that is just an avocado corn salsa. We actually did a staff cookbook with all avocado recipes. It's amazing. And that's one of my favorites, and eating that with chips. Very basic, but very delicious and fresh.
I'm sure it is delicious. We'll trade recipes. Mine's a little simpler than that, but we'll trade recipes on there.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about trends. Let's talk about some broad but important trends. So everything we thought we knew about consumers has kind of been turned upside down over the past couple of quarters. Are there any trends or consumer behavior of particular importance to you or to our audience that you'd like to call out?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're trying to make sure we understand shopper behaviors. So we've done numerous COVID studies and understanding how it's changed most recently, and there's so many different insights that we've gained recently, but I think one of the top ones is pre-shop has definitely grown in importance. That from the media consumption, shoppers are definitely, and consumers are consuming much more media, looking at social media. They're spending their time on mobile and even looking for more knowledge, right? Like looking for topics, things like searching for recipes, things that can help them in their daily life. And we're seeing that trend just continue to grow. And especially just all the time being at home, from working from home or personally, they're cooking at home. And so we're seeing that there's much more behaviors that we think will stay post-COVID. And the thinking of making sure things are on the shopping list and they're also sticking to them, right? Those kind of behaviors we're seeing are definitely growing, and in our opinion, my opinion is that they're going to stay as well.
Good. All right. So interesting. So the first thing you said was around pre-shop. So let's dive into that just a little bit, because I think about the trip, right? The trip to the grocery store, the trip to the weekly stock up trip, right? A lot of times we like to go with a list, but we like to be inspired and kind of walk around and get inspired. And what I'm hearing from you is that pre-shop is becoming increasingly important, that shopping list is becoming increasingly important. And that actually circles back to something you talked about a little bit earlier is, you know, when you're building a shopping list as a marketer, you like to brand that shopping list. So instead of just putting down avocados, we want them to put down avocados from Mexico, right? Or the brand.
Exactly.
But you've got a little bit different branding challenge, right? Because you do have that market share and so on. So it's interesting observation.
Right. No, for sure. I think we're living in a different world, right? And right now it used to be back then where it's a family, you know, going leisurely to the grocery store, and now it's like that single person mission on going in and out. So that's the reason why we know that pre-shop is very critical for all of us.
Great. And do you have, and you may or may not have this data, this is a pretty specific question, but do you have any insight into avocado consumption, how that's been impacted over the past 6 months during COVID? I think my household is up. I think.
Yes. Actually, consumers are looking for health, right? I think benefits building their immunities and immune system. And so we do see our consumption is up as well. And so thank you for consuming avocados. We appreciate it. And we see that it has grown, volume is growing, and we are thankful we have seen that volume, we've seen that consumption, that drive. It's the areas of like it's health, but it's also along the thought process of that the consumer and shoppers also stocking up. And that's definitely helped kind of our volume. And what we're trying to do is continue that momentum and making sure that we have things that, for example, our bagged avocados, they're looking, when they're going in and out really fast, they're looking to go in and grab avocados. So bagged avocados are what we're seeing growing, right, in the market. And so they're looking for something where they can quickly pick it up. Bagged avocados are also, you know, from a safety standpoint, you're not stealing all the avocados, and so they're grabbing that as well. And then that idea of value is very important. So we definitely are lucky to see that growth and making sure we understand those shopper needs so that we're focusing on that.
Yeah, interesting. And I'll harken back to my soft drink days, right? It was about driving the multi-packs, right? And the bagged avocados will also drive consumption, right? Instead of picking one or two that I need for this meal, I'm going to buy a half dozen of them, and then that'll drive that consumption. So that's a nice trend.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other area is also just the thought of shoppers and consumers really wanting to keep avocados staying fresh longer. And that's one of the.
Let's talk about that. That's an interesting one. You're bringing out the consumer in me, because I think about stocking up, and you stock up on avocados, but how do you time it so you're eating them when they're fresh, and what do you do with the other half and stuff like that? Let's talk about that.
No. Exactly. You hit on all of the components and all the issues that we're seeing that consumers are also thinking about. They have that top of mind. As they're buying more avocados, they're buying it, they're stocking up. That is one of the top pieces of research that we found, is that if they're buying more, they're stocking up, they're making less trips to the store. So what can they do to keep their avocados fresh longer? Exactly what you're saying. And so what we're trying to do is, we know our education strategy, and education is actually one of the top barriers to purchase for our avocado category. And knowing that, and part of barriers to purchase is not knowing how to ripen the avocado, not knowing, to your point as well, not knowing how to save the other half, not knowing how to pick avocados. And so what we've done is built a strategy around that, and making sure we turn all of the barriers to techniques that we can address. And so what we've learned recently is that the idea of keeping avocados fresh longer, what we've done is reprioritize our techniques. So understanding that need, we are now reprioritizing so that we're communicating to the shopper and consumer that how you do that, keep them fresh, put them in the refrigerator. The second thing is, like, if you're not knowing how to save the other half, all you do is wrap them very tightly with plastic wrap. So very simple, easy techniques, and that really hits upon that need and the concern about keeping them fresh longer.
Okay, so educating a consumer, that harkens back. I had a client on the lawn and garden chemical side, and it seems like a far reach, right? But I'm going to try to draw some comparisons on educating consumers, and what are the best tactics or methods for doing so. We talked a lot about in-store authority and educating store associates in so much as they're willing to help the customers in the store. We don't always have that one-on-one direct line to the consumer in the store. So do you have any suggestions or tactics on how you educate consumers with these types of things?
Yeah, we actually have a two-pronged approach. I think from a consumer standpoint, pre-shop was always important to us. It's now important even more than ever, making sure we have working with our digital team to target them like on social media, where they're looking at different sites, and also where we can in-store, right? And then also post-store. So really looking at the entire path to purchase and making sure we have that messaging, the right messaging for them at the right time. And then on the other front, you actually touched upon a perfect segue, is that we are also looking at B2B. We've actually just launched our B2B Avocado University on National Guacamole Day on September 16th. And that's actually really tying back in to educate the produce store personnel, as well as retailers in the corporate environment, everything that they need to know from an avocado standpoint, all the way from the orchards to the store, and then helping all the associates know more about avocados, and that way they can also communicate and share that with shoppers.
Avocado University. I've got to learn more about that. I love it. You know what? You're touching on a really important point, Diane, because you've got an audience of shopper marketers out here, and we're all very focused on driving that retailer-specific message to the shopper, to the consumer. But what you're talking about with Avocado University is actually driving a message and partnering with your retail partners and educating them and helping them. And you're doing so. In doing so, you're not just driving sales of avocados, but you're helping that associate become a better service person to that shopper and that customer, and that has the potential then to lift the category, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So let's go down that path just a little bit further and talk about this idea of retail and brand partnerships. So I often talk about the importance of a mutually beneficial partnership between retailer and supplier. And as shopper marketers, it's almost as important that we understand our retail partners' brand and mission as well as we understand our own. So can you share an anecdote about how you've customized an approach based on your retail partners' priorities?
Yes, for sure. We always try to create, and sometimes it's easier said than done, right? But we do try to create a win-win situation for both our brand, the retailer, as well as our category. I would say I have two good examples. I think our first one is with Walmart. And with our education effort that we just spoke about, what we've learned is that Walmart is also focused on education, really addressing that barrier to purchase and driving confidence with their shoppers. And that especially pertains to our category. And so what we've done is we've partnered with Walmart and developed an omni-channel program with them, touching upon the entire path to purchase. And so we're helping them educate their shoppers to learn how to save the other half, as well as picking and picking avocados for now, but also for later, right? So I think that was definitely a great parallel for us working with them. And I think another good example that we're working with is Kroger. And so one of the drivers of purchase would be health. And so knowing that Kroger is very focused on health, they have Kroger Health, and they have a new program and campaign, which is their Kroger Opt Up program. And so we're partnering with them, knowing that, of course, avocados, right, heart healthy, nutrient dense, and so it's a perfect complement to their Kroger Opt Up program. And we are together have built a program that is like in store and also online, and really helping their shoppers understand the need to eat healthy, as well as the nutrition and all of the things that they're consuming.
Hey, that's awesome. Very healthy. Is avocado a superfood? I don't even know what that designation means. Do they call it a superfood?
Yes, there's nearly 20 vitamins and minerals in just an avocado. I mean, it has actually more potassium than a banana. It's good for your heart. And don't quote me on everything that I'm saying, where I think the USDA may not say that I'm actually saying it exactly, but definitely avocados are heart healthy, have good fats. And so, yes, for sure, we are a superfood, and health is one of the top drivers for us.
That's awesome. So we're all friends here. So we're not going to hold you to any of those official claims. But I am going to quote you though. I'm going to make sure that the family knows how healthy they are, and we can maybe because there's not a whole lot of superfoods that I run around and ask for.
Yeah,
this will be one of them. So we'll put it on the list for sure.
Great.
So that's great.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So I heard, just to read back, I heard Walmart had a customized omni-channel program around shopper education, but Kroger, same product, different retailer priority around health, around a health message. So you customized the program for that retailer, which I think is, that's an important, takeaway. And this audience, and we all know that we need to serve our retail partners with our shopper marketing budgets, and we need to think about driving not just our item sales up, but supporting that category, and we all win with that. So that's great insight. Thank you for sharing that. I'll transition just a little bit. So you've mentioned a couple of times, Diane, around addressing the entire path to purchase, and I love that notion, because the path to purchase, and I've been around a little while, so the path to purchase in the day was very linear, right? You do your pre-shop, you go to the store, and then you go home, right? You have your after shop. But anymore with the emergence of digital and omni-channel, that path to purchase is no longer linear. It's all over the place, right? So at Viacom CBS, we create content with the intent of that content being placed in various places throughout the path to purchase. So we might create some social first content, but then we want that message or that rendering, that image, maybe it's a video, maybe it's a picture, we want that also to show up in the store on the POS signage and so on, so that we're delivering a cohesive message to the shopper. Do you have any other examples around how you address these multiple points in the path to purchase?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've definitely done a lot of different things. I think we've always tried to innovate and keep up with technology and be the first one to do things. And we've done things from chatbots in store to making sure we have digital, like we're partnering with in-market, make sure that we are geo-targeting our shoppers, as well as kind of in the right moment, right place, as they're going to the store and even maybe in the store. And so those are all different things that we are trying to make sure that the content is really customized for them, personalized, and then also at the right time. So all of the capabilities out there, we are definitely looking into and making sure that we are doing what we need to do to communicate that to the consumer and the shopper.
Lovely. Oh, that's great. And then, thinking about that path to purchase and the way that we message shoppers and we target shoppers, I'm going to steal a question from the previous session, which was around retail media. And again, we didn't prep this question at all, but did you have any thoughts around leveraging things like WMG at Walmart or Rondell at Target, or I don't know if you're in Dollar Channel, the Dollar General Media Network. A lot of these retailers are coming up. Kroger too has their own media network. Do you have any thoughts or an opinion or advice for the audience around those retail media networks?
Yeah, for us, we've actually are fairly new in working with like Walmart Media Group. I think we've had a small program with them in 2020, but what we've done is kind of reassess e-com, especially within our industry, right? It's more sensorial, it's tactile, and so e-com is one of those things, especially for produce. Shoppers and consumers are a little more hesitant. And so what we are trying to do is we're looking at Walmart Media Group and trying to test things out, right, with certain campaigns, as well as Kroger. We're working with our digital team very closely from an e-com standpoint and more of testing and learning. And then that way we are using our budgets wisely and making sure that we have the right strategy and approach in place. And especially, with the adoption of e-com going so rapidly, right? That's something that we're not ignoring. I think we're definitely learning and testing and learning and figuring things out for best use of our funds.
Yeah, that is so interesting, because you're right. In terms of e-com adoption, grocery, particularly fresh, is the last, for some shoppers, it's the last frontier, is ordering their fresh through e-com. But with the pandemic, with COVID, it certainly has accelerated e-commerce adoption. So there's been a lot written about COVID and its impact on shoppers, and I think it's appropriate that we talk a little bit about that. So if you don't mind, Diane, I'm gonna just share just a little bit of data. A lot of this is kind of one of those duh things, right? We all know this, right? But it's worth saying out loud, right? Forbes reports that retailers' e-com business is up over 70%, while order volume is up over 100%. And we're like, wow, it's really accelerated. The accelerated adoption of e-com, or click and collect and delivery services, it spans all demographics. And I like to share an anecdote that, my 80-year-old mother, who doesn't even have a smartphone, we did for a little while, but we like the traditional flip phone a little bit better. But Mom hasn't been in a store since February, right? Because she has adopted click and collect, and she's placing her orders on the computer and picking them up without going in stores. She feels safe, she feels clean, she feels great. So I think about that impact, and who would have predicted 7 months ago that we would have this kind of an accelerator around e-com. And you've already answered this question a little bit, but my thoughts around e-com and how it plays in the grocery field. What kind of best practices or thoughts do you have around how we make fresh more attractive to e-com buyers or shoppers?
Yeah, I think that's a question that, our team has definitely talked about recently, and with our digital team. It is definitely, it's not easy, right? Like fresh is, and especially produce, fresh, consumers and shoppers are still going to the stores, especially for produce. So e-com is growing. How do we do that? I think there's different things we're starting to have. For us, the first step is to have that conversation with our retailers, right? Bringing that to the forefront. Using our insights and research that we've found out, the trends, different things that are pertaining to fresh, and sharing that and helping them build a plan, but also build it with them. I think that's, for us, is very critical. And then because we haven't allocated as much funding for e-com, it's really carving things out, kind of like what I was saying earlier about testing and learning. and working with the retailer on what those key strategies are, whether or not it's on the retailers, I think, like within their capabilities, or if it's something via third party that we can do to make sure that we have the right messages. And for us, there's two areas from a content standpoint. As you mentioned, content is very important, right? And it's education for us, and also how do we inspire them through recipes and other ways. So making sure that's top of mind and getting avocados, for example, on that right now, like a virtual shopping list. And so those are some things that are very critical for us to think through as we build in our e-com plan. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. And there, you know what? That was well said, Diane. And this is the thing about COVID. And you know, it doesn't matter if you have gray in your beard or you know, or you're new to the business. You know, none of us have been through anything like this before. None of us have that tribal knowledge or that experience to say, oh yeah, when this happened back in, you know, 1980, whatever. No, you know, none of us have that experience. So we're all figuring it out. And COVID has certainly accelerated, you know, trends that were, you know, already in place. They're already established, but boy, it has accelerated these things. And that's great that you're being thoughtful about your response. Another area where COVID has had a real impact is around the retail selling seasons calendar. You know, we just came out of this weird back to school selling season, which is like no other we've ever seen, right? With laptops and office furniture flying off the shelves, but traditional teachers stock up items, you know, maybe they're not. We're in the midst of like fall football, and you know what, football is back, but it has been a little disrupted. You know, we don't know what Halloween's going to look like, right? You know, the big elephant in the room is holiday. A lot of people on the phone are thinking about holiday, but as I understand, your holiday is built largely around this fall football that we're in the midst of right now. So is there anything you can tell me about this season that looks different than seasons of past?
Yeah, well, we've done holiday programs before, but we've tried to learn that holiday is not, you know, top of mind for avocados. You don't think, you know, ham, turkey, Thanksgiving and avocados aren't top of mind. So, but what we do know is there's such a strong association with avocados, guacamole, with football. And that's kind of our mainstay, right? And we've focused on football. Our biggest time frame is October, November, December, which aligns perfectly with football. And we've actually had an amazing plan that targeted, you know, and based around football. However, with COVID, we actually pivoted. We know that everyone's at home, and there is a big focus on, like, you know, renovating rooms and building, to your point, building home offices, you know, building out the backyard, looking for playhouses and different things. So knowing that and understanding that need, what we've done is we've pivoted by developing a new campaign that's called Guac the House. And it's all around winning new home.
Was that Guac the House?
Yeah, Guac the House.
Oh my gosh, that's clever. Okay, go on. Let's Guac the House. Let's hear about it.
Yes, so Guac the House is where consumers can win a new home worth $500,000. And they can also win home improvement gift cards to upgrade your kitchen, renovate your garage, or build a new workout room. So there's different things that resonate to shoppers and consumers right now. And so that's one of the things that we've changed. And we're seeing like a lot of interest already from retailers, and we're launching that here shortly next month. So October is almost here.
Inside scoop here. Yeah, we got the scoop. And I love the alignment with, you know, basically where the market is taking us. It's, you know, a lot of people are nesting, right? They're you know, doing home improvements or, you know, looking at new homes, and now you're aligning there. So that's smart. That's clever. If I could, because football is a priority, I'm going to do one quick plug around Viacom CBS because obviously we've got CBS Sports, right? We're playing the football, and I think about brands that are targeting the sports fan. We've got techniques and methods and insights, frankly, that allow us to target through our CBS Sports IP. Likewise, we've got Nickelodeon, which is the family IP. We've got CMT, Country Music Television, which is more of that heartland Midwestern shopper. So we have great pride and we have great benefit in leveraging some of our insights and IP to address those types of shoppers and those types of selling seasons. So I love the fact that you brought that up.
Oh, that's great. And we are focused on Super Bowl as well.
And we are as well. So Super Bowl on CBS. That's right.
Yeah.
So great. So we're going to switch over to Q&A in just a few minutes. But before we do, we are asking all participants around their predictions for 2021. Now, I think you've given us quite a bit of that already, but I don't know if you wanted to wrap up or summarize any of your 2021 predictions. Might be around e-com, might be around COVID, might be around shopper behavior, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I think definitely for 2021, a lot of the behaviors are going to sustain, right? I think your consumers are already kind of used to doing things from making sure they're a little bit more conscious of washing their hands, not touching their faces, all the way from that to building that shopping list and also pre-shop. And so those behaviors are going to stay around. And we've had to kind of scale back from an in-store standpoint in 2020. And so looking ahead in 2021, we're planning to ramp up the in-store experience. It's still going to be a little different, but making sure we keep in-store top of mind, and then also building in the e-com component and making sure we are testing and learning and not forgetting about that, as we know our e-com rates are definitely growing. And so I think those are a couple things that we're making sure we're keeping into account and considerations. But ideally, from a prediction standpoint, I think in-store, e-com, pre-shop, very important. And also just the understanding of in-home, right? All the in-home aspects from consumers, those are all the things that we're making sure we're trying to keep top of mind.
That's great. That's great. That's a thoughtful answer. If I could, can we drill on one of those? I like the fact that you brought up in-store, because a lot of conversations around the e-com immersion. But you know what? We're going to come out of this fog, right? And we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. It's not going to be a line in the sand that we cross and it's over. It's going to be more of a gradual. But I think a lot about that in-store component. The second half of my business beyond content is experiences. And that relies a lot on creating in-store retail chain type experiences. So I think about things like sampling. And sampling, does Avocados do sampling?
We do. We partner with all of our retailers for samples, and from guac to, you could think of like different things like avocados on salad. So we do focus on our core occasions, but we do have sampling, and we even do experiential. We used to have an Avo tour that went around to universities and sampled like guacamole or half an avocado, right, with seasoning on top. So yes, it's definitely much different now with COVID.
It's so funny. This is going to fall flat, I have no doubt. But I want to do a franchise off of your Guac the House tour, and maybe we can do something like MTV Guac the spring break or Guac the beach, or I don't know. Let's make it a franchise.
For sure, that sounds fun.
That's clever. So I'll encourage the audience to throw out any questions that you have for Diane or for myself. And in the meantime, and also recipes, right? I challenged everybody for recipes, and I don't see any recipes up here. I know you guys have the good ones. I don't want you holding out on us. I really want to see what you guys are doing with your avocados and your guacamole. So please submit those questions now. We'll be wrapping up in just a couple of minutes. So Liz, I started to go down this path, and I kind of detoured, but around the sampling idea. So we've created at Viacom. We've got our cultural insights team. We've done some surveys and some research around, what the future in-store experience is going to look like. And one of the things we learned is that safety is top of mind. And that's another one of those duh statements, but safety is even above anything like surprise and delight or discovery or nutrition. They want to know that they're shopping and that they're safe. So, I start to imagine what does sampling look like going forward, and you can imagine, individually portioned cups or things that are sealed where people aren't breathing over or touching or things like that. Have you guys put any thought? Are you thinking about returning to sampling in the near future, or do you think that's we're going to wait and see how things pan out?
I think right now we are waiting to see what retailers are doing. And for example, Walmart, they are doing digital demos right now, and that's digital sampling. And so we have been, working with Walmart on that. So where the capabilities exist with the retailers, we are definitely working with them on that. And then things from an experiential standpoint, we actually have not looked into that. We're kind of holding off until things get better, right? But I think it's all about what else can we do. I mean, I think we're constantly brainstorming. What can we do in store? We know displays are so important. What can we do to drive that impulse purchase? And we are looking for different things, and signage is so critical in store to really catch that shopper's attention, even though it'll probably be even faster now. But those are some of the things that are top of mind for us as we're looking into 2021.
That's great. That's interesting. I'm starting to get some recipes coming in. So we've got avocado vegetable rolls. I have somebody suggesting replacing mayonnaise on a sandwich with avocado.
Yes.
That's interesting.
For sure, yeah.
Take away my mayonnaise now.
Yeah.
No, I think
that's a great. We do have a registered dietitian that is also that we work with, and that's one of the things that you can swap out, is swapping out mayo and butter with avocados, because of the good fats that are in avocados and the high oil content. You can definitely swap that out and tastes amazing. You should definitely try that. That was a great recipe suggestion.
All right. We can save some calories and some unhealthy fats by replacing certain ingredients with an avocado mash. I like that. So great. There's a question here about how are avocados from Mexico different than avocados from where? From California? Is that where they come from?
So avocados from Mexico, the variety of avocados from Mexico is Hass avocados. So Hass is like 99% of the U.S.'s variety. And so there are different country of origins that the avocados come from. So there are some coming from California. There's some coming like Peru, for example, but 80% of the U.S. avocados are from Mexico.
Awesome. That's great. And here, I've got another good question here. It's a good, thoughtful one. So given football is a big season for avocados, have you tested during any other major sports season? Major League Baseball, NBA, MLS, anything like that? Is it exclusive to football, or is this more of a sports tailgating game?
So it is definitely fall football, and Super Bowl is actually one of our biggest occasions. And so Super Bowl is one of our top occasions. So we focus heavily on Super Bowl. But from another sporting kind of, I guess, time frame would also be like March Madness. And so we do have a program around that time frame, and we're partnering with Mission. and focusing on like tacos, right? Mexican handhelds is a core occasion for us, and as well as kind of that home gating, watching the games at home, kind of that type of feel. So we are looking into that as well.
That's great. And I think about my tacos. This is true story. My wife will make guacamole, but then she'll also just dice up the avocados. And I prefer them diced. I don't know what it is about the texture. I just like the texture as a topping, not always being mashed. So
yes, exactly. Diced, sliced. I mean, you could, put them in salads, top tacos, put them in burgers and sandwiches. I mean, you could do, there's so much that you can do with avocados.
That's great. That's great. Well, Diane, thank you so much for sharing. This has been enlightening, and I'm sorry if I overdid it on the avocado questions. I'm just curious.
No, we love it.
I think who doesn't love a good avocado? I mean, this was great. Thank you guys so much. I know we get the guacamole going every Sunday for football. So thank you, Mike. Thank you. As always, we'll find time for part 2 soon. But this was really fantastic. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, David.
All right. Of course, guys. All right, we've got one final session before we wrap up today. So we've got Dan Gray coming up from Ford Motor Company on the digital marketing side. And we have Lori Adler from Bliss, who's going to be moderating the discussion. So I believe they are joining right now. I see Dan coming in. I see Lori coming in. Again, I was mentioning before, if you're a football fan and or any sports fan, we have a fantastic program coming up all around women in sports with executives from Pepsi, from Verizon, from the Green Bay Packers, from Bank of America, from T-Mobile. So that one's coming up tomorrow. It's going to be really fantastic. I see Lori's here. I see Dan's here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can hear you guys. I can see you guys. So the floor is yours. I'll give you the virtual round of applause. Welcome. Lori, I'll turn it over to you to kick off the conversation.
Thanks, David. Dan, good to see you. Everyone, just like David mentioned, my name is Lori Adler. I am the Central Sales Director here at Bliss. To give you a little background, Bliss is a global location-powered advertising and analytics partner. And we found a real sweet spot in the shopper marketing space by leveraging our accurate and verified location data to help brands better understand, reach, and engage consumers. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you, Dan, about shopper marketing and really pick your brain on shopper marketing in the auto industry. Would you like to give a quick background and introduction of yourself to everyone as well?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks to Brand Innovators, David and Lori moderating this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, my name's Dan Gray. I'm the digital shopper content manager at Ford. I've spent my entire career at Ford, 16 years, where I've had a lot of different roles, but I'm sure we'll get into my background. But again, really excited about joining the session with all these other great shopper marketers. So, yeah.
Thanks for that introduction. And, you kind of hit right on the first point that I wanted to talk about with you, being that you have been with Ford your entire professional career, which is a huge milestone today. And I think in our industry is almost unheard of. So since you've been with Ford and experienced shopper marketing, how have you seen it evolve throughout your career at Ford?
Yeah, so when I joined Ford, I knew I wanted to get into marketing and be with a company that had a global reach. So originally when I started at Ford, I was basically a Ford field sales rep. So I'd go to the dealerships and help, with their sales and their marketing and stuff like that. But then, I took a turn over to business development and operations. And then I went to marketing and sponsorships, more of the experiential marketing side. So there was a lot of events, and Ford does a great job of sponsorships of professional sports teams and different events like that. And then finally, going over onto the digital side, where there's just so much growth there. So how I've seen marketing evolved in not only in my career, but in the digital space is, there's just all this new media that's out there. I think, who we partner with, who we're doing business with, and the different platforms itself is constantly evolving. So what might be, pertinent now, what might be the platform that people are on now may not be the platform in the future, or we don't know where our customers are at. So I think that's a big thing, is that we want to meet our customers where they're at, and then learn more about them, and again, have a relationship of trust with them. And again, I think there's just so much innovation that's going on, that it's a really neat space to be in. We're looking at, and we just announced that we're doing a thing with augmented reality. So we just launched the Mustang Mach-E, which is an all-electric SUV Mustang that is something new that a lot of people haven't seen. And so today we announced that through Instagram and Facebook that there's an augmented reality platform where customers can go and learn more about the vehicle. We have something called the Mach-E Expert in 0 to 60, where we have 10 different videos where customers are hearing from our engineers and our experts about what this new electric Mustang is all about. And we're really excited about that.
That's super exciting. It all happened today?
Today was the launch of the augmented reality and 0 to 6 expert in 0 to 60. So go check out our Ford Instagram account, and you'll find it there.
And not only is it very innovative, but it's also very COVID-safe, which is awesome. You're kind of playing in both arenas there. Which you were talking about a lot of innovation and things changing so quickly in this space, and so that kind of leads me to my next question for you: is how have you seen shopper marketing evolve, and what has been the most impactful changes that you've seen, whether that be new channels, new data sets, to even new measurement partners?
Yeah, I mean, all that's important. I think the biggest thing that we do at Ford is constant test and learn. So whether it's a new platform, whether we're exploring new opportunities, if we've done it before and maybe it's not performing as it has done in the past, we're constantly evolving and constantly testing, where we're at and how we reach our customers. I think the biggest thing for us in this current environment is trust. One of the things that we paused in our advertising was paid social advertising through Facebook and some other channels. So that was one of the things that not only Ford, but a lot of other major companies did as well. So, it's a constant evolution and constant monitoring, but I think the biggest thing that we're trying to do is doing the test and learn.
Okay, very cool. And, I think with shopper marketing and what we've seen today is all the other brands that were really talking in the panels were CPGs. And I think a lot of times when people think of shopper marketing, they think of CPG. But, we're speaking auto here today. So what does shopper marketing mean for the auto industry?
Great question, because, shopper marketing in auto is a lot different than CPG, where, purchase for auto is one of the major purchases you can make. And it's not something that happens very often, so we have a very short, life cycle of trying to reach that customer. So I think the biggest thing is that, you know, you see car commercials everywhere, right? So much of that is getting awareness out there. But, you know, in shopper marketing and specifically what, you know, I work on is really getting those lower funnel customers that are ready to make purchase decisions, are ready to do a little bit more in-depth research, getting them the information that they need. So we want to try to give them the features, the benefits, you know, what are those trigger points that they are looking, you know, for in a new vehicle. And we want to meet them, you know, where they want to be met. So they're active, if they're actively researching, then we'll give them, you know, content that meets them where they want to be met. If they're looking at pricing, you know, that's also something where we want to meet them. But I think in auto, the biggest difference is that, you know, we have our independent franchisees or our dealerships. And so the biggest part of what my role is to get those customers down to those key buying actions, but at the dealership level, because that's where the transaction happens, right? So they want to look at their inventory, what they have available, you know, who they want to shop from. So I think that's a big part of my role and in auto in general is to get that customer from, you know, awareness and more of, you know, the features and benefits down to maybe getting the transactions and when they can make some purchase decisions.
Yeah, and it's much longer purchase funnel consideration versus, you know, just running stores. So I know there's plenty of challenges in that self, but what do you feel like is something that you have done to make Ford stand out from the rest, or without giving away your secret sauce, or something that you think has really kept you guys ahead of other brands in the shopper marketing arena?
Well, I can just tell you what we've done during COVID time, which is again trying to understand customers' comfort level. I would say, is this an apprehensive customer? Is it a customer that's very confident? Because again, we're trying to look at you know, different customers have different I guess lenses that they're looking at. And so again, I think the biggest part of what we're trying to do is meet the customer where they want to be met and give them messages that they feel is appropriate. So if a customer is just looking around and trying to get more information about a vehicle, we don't want to, you know, bang them over the head with a, you know, sales price, because they might not be there yet. Obviously, when it's time for them to, you know, make that decision, you know, we'll be there. But again, you know, we try to have a long-term relationship with them, and we don't want to, what I said was bang them over the head with, you know, sale price, sale price, sale price. Yeah.
Oh, and you just led me on to my next point, actually, was with the whole pandemic. I have been so impressed with the proactive messaging that Ford has been putting out, but without being aggressive, really, because, you know, throughout coronavirus and this pandemic, I think that we've had a massive effect on consumer behaviors and consumers' needs and desires, and even concerns have changed. And uncertainty being one of the main concerns that everyone has across the U.S. And so with you guys being proactive, putting out comforting messaging like Built to Lend a Hand and the Ford Promise, these promotions, I've been super impressed by those. And I think that kind of also resonates well with consumers. So can you tell us a little more about these promotions and these messages?
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so when shutdowns happen, and again, we want to know what our customers are going through, and so we don't want to be tone deaf or anything like that. So, you know, when shutdowns happen, and if someone's making a car, it's a big purchase, you know, we want to help them through it. And so We had a campaign called Built to Lend a Hand, where we provided them 3 months payments, and we deferred the first 3 months payments. So 6 months of peace of mind for customers that needed to get into a new vehicle. So that was at the beginning of the shutdowns and when things were really serious then. And then after that, we pivoted to something called the Ford Promise, which effectively gave customers, again, peace of mind that if they purchase a vehicle and they happen to lose their job in the next time period, in this case 12 months, that we would help support them and have them be able to return the vehicle that they just purchased without it affecting their credit or anything like that. The last thing is that in the car business, we have different sales events, and summer is a big time for car sales. So, we had a summer sales event, but we weren't screaming from the top of our lungs, "Here, we're having a sales event." We wanted to let people know that, hey, summer's here. A lot of people go on road trips looking for a new vehicle. Our vehicles are on sale. So again, we try to strike the right tone, and again, be really respectful of the current situation. And I think we did a really good job in trying to just build some brand equity there.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I thought that they were very timely and that the way that they were delivered was very impressive. So I really liked them, and I thought it was great. And I'm curious just to understand, because I felt like they were all very timely in the way that this came out, from Built to Lend a Hand to then easily transitioning to the Ford Promise. How did these programs come to fruition? Were these pretty quick turnarounds, or did you guys have an idea that something was coming, that this was going to be worse than anyone was hoping for, and were working on it ahead of time, or was it a pretty quick turnaround?
I mean, they were very complicated messages because, we have to work with our partners in our credit side. So Ford Credit is our financing company. And so it's a message that we, along with our finance arm, have to come together and see total cost of ownership for a customer. How do we make it easy for customers to get into a new vehicle in a pretty trying time? Some people, don't have a choice. They need a car, they need transportation. And so that was one of the things that, there was a lot of brainstorming activities. We took a look at what the industry is doing, but we also wanted to set ourselves apart. And I think that was the biggest thing is what can we do? What can Ford do to cut through the clutter and really have a good message? Because I feel like, a lot of the commercials during that time kind of was the same tone, but what kind of substance did we have behind it without saying the same thing that everyone else was saying? We wanted to put our money where our mouth was, and I felt that those programs, wrapped a really tight bow around what we were offering.
Yeah, totally. And, you mentioned that you had to kind of work with your financing team and other teams to kind of really make these come to life. How is this different than other shopper marketing messages you put together? Do you usually have to work with all these other teams, or was this a new kind of layer to your messaging?
Yeah, certainly it is a huge new layer. I feel like we work closely with our financing team, but we had to work hand in hand with them. And at the end of the day, we wanted to come out with a message that resonated. And again, normally we spend months planning for these types of things, and in this time it was we had to pivot, and again, constantly looking at the data, looking at the maps, who's open, who's not, as far as states goes, and really take a pulse of what's going on out there with customers and just buyer behavior.
Yeah. And so how have you seen any shifts in loyalty compared to, you know, the prior 6 months to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think the shifts away from cars into bigger vehicles like SUVs and trucks, we're seeing a lot of that. More and more people feel like their vehicles need to do everything for them, especially when, you know, they want to feel safe, they want to feel like comfort and their interiors be like a sanctuary for them, whether they're, you know, they're out running their groceries and they can get in their car and then finally take their mask off. You know, it's like, you know, they can finally breathe. And so that's what we're trying to do. And our vehicles are capable and we have a great lineup. But I think to your question about loyalty, it goes back to what Ford did at the beginning of the pandemic, where weeks into the shutdown, weeks into, you know, this chaos, Ford made the decision to, well, first of all, our plants were shut down, so no vehicles were being produced. And we made the decision that we were going to make PPE. So nobody asked us to do this. We felt it was a duty as an American manufacturer to help support the cause. And so that's exactly what we did. We partnered with 3M, we partnered with GE Healthcare, we made ventilators, respirators, we made masks, we made face shields. And so that, I think, people saw what Ford was doing. And I think that helped bring a lot of loyalty back to Ford if they weren't Ford customers to begin with. And then, you know, outside, I mean, we're getting a lot of kudos from that. Recently, Peter Berg, he's an award-winning director, contacted Ford and said he wanted to do a short film on, you know, our response to the pandemic. And so it's an 8-minute film. You can see it on YouTube, but it's called On the Line. And Peter Berg was a director that did Friday Night Lights, the movie, and some other films. Lone Survivor, we did that too. So if you can, go out and check that 8-minute short film. It's really good, and it talks about the response that Ford did at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, I have to imagine that just not only just consumers' perceptions of Ford, but that had to have helped your loyalty, even though that wasn't necessarily on the paid marketing side, but just the greater good for the U.S. And so yeah, that was very cool, and I'm glad you touched on that as well, because I know we talked about that before. And so obviously that was a huge positive that, you know, Ford was even using to capitalize on. But on another note, like, what other benefits have you seen from your new messaging to new targeting for consumers throughout the pandemic?
I will say how it's kind of changed our I would say reveal strategy. So during the middle of the pandemic, we had a vehicle that we were just dying to get out to everybody. We had all these great plans of how we were going to feature it, how we were going to show it, and how we were going to reveal it. That vehicle was a Ford Bronco. So we've been waiting for this, and we had all these, you know, strategies and launch and reveal program, and all that went out the window when we couldn't have in-person events. So what we did was we partnered with you know, a media company, and that media company happened to be Disney. Disney owns a lot of different channels, such as ESPN, Nat Geo, ABC. And we did a totally virtual reveal. And the benefit of that is that we had all this great content that we would partner with, you know, whether it's content creators from Disney or Nat Geo, because this was such an important vehicle for us. So many people, so many enthusiasts that live that lifestyle, whether it's outdoors, sports, things like that, we're wanting to see that. And so for us to launch a vehicle in the middle of a pandemic when we can't really have any events, if you will, that was a huge success for us. And we got so many clicks to our website that our website ended up crashing because we couldn't handle the volume. So that was success in our book. But we had customers had the opportunity to go out and reserve their new Bronco, and they all went to our website, and that's what we were trying to do.
Oh, that's great. And that also made me think of how you mentioned earlier about the new Mustang and the augmented reality. Was this something that you guys had planned, in January to maybe launch something with augmented reality, or because of the new landscape, you had to kind of pivot and go virtually for this release?
Yeah, I mean, augmented reality, we've done a lot of different things with augmented reality, whether it's, in-person events or even some of our engineering and designing of vehicles we're using that technology in so many different ways. I think what happened when we're living in this more of a virtual world is that it just sped that up so quickly. It's like, hey, we need to get this engaging content in front of our customers that literally, like, they can't really feel or see it in a three-dimensional world. How are we going to do that? And so I think the way that we are answering that question with augmented reality, it sped that up so quickly. So to answer your question, I think we've always been thinking about it. It's just now's the best time to do it.
Yeah. It's very cool. I'm definitely going to check that out tonight.
Yeah. Check it out.
So, I mean, we're talking about all the benefits, and I hate to go to negatives, but I would just like to understand better, of course, now, but also make this twofold, even before the pandemic. What are the challenges that you see in shopper marketing for the auto industry before and then also now?
Great question. I mean, it's the, like I said before, with shopper marketing and auto, it's the transition from getting the customer lower funnel down to the dealership level and then making that transaction. Every dealership is run differently. They're individual owners, entrepreneurs. Some are more digitally savvy than others, but we've tried to create a really good platform where we have consistency. But at the end of the day, we're trying to provide, customers to every dealership. Now, the dealerships have done a great job of making the transaction easier for the customer. Before, it was so much of it was you had to physically go into a dealership, right? A lot of paperwork, things like that. Now, like I said before, we're speeding up that process. A lot of the shopping can be done online. A lot of paperwork can be done online, so that it's very seamless for customers to, like I say, shop online and then make that transaction with those dealerships and take delivery of their vehicle. We started doing contactless delivery for customers that needed vehicles, but weren't comfortable coming into a dealership, and so that was something that we had to pivot on. And there are several. I mean, some from our stores are doing a great job, and I think industry wide that's something that they're all doing. So I think that's the new normal of customers wanting to do a lot of the shopping, paperwork up front, and if they don't feel comfortable, it could be a drop off delivery very easily.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what stays the same after all of this, from, you know, all the contactless delivery or the pre-filling out forms, like you said, and then what goes back to normal. It's just like a real social experiment. Which then also leads me to my next question for you is, you know, we're talking about all of these innovations and these changes. You know, what are your predictions for 2021 for the auto industry?
Great question. You know, in 2020, we saw that, of course, a lot of people were not, you know, flying. They were not you know, taking long trips internationally. But we saw a return to the outdoors. We saw, you know, a return to, you know, road trips in like a 3-mile radius from where people lived. And so like kind of like mini vacations. You know, some of that was because they didn't feel comfortable, you know, getting on a plane. A lot of them were camping because they didn't feel comfortable staying in a hotel. But a lot of people were staying with their kind of core family unit. And so what we've seen is industry-wide is that, you know, more people are, you know, investing in camper vans or trailers or, you know, things that, you know, they don't have to, you know, get into a plane and go do, but things that are fun. So in 2021, you know, I still see that people are still going to be, you know, returning to the outdoors. I think, you know, people are going to want to go on vacations. But I think road trips will still stay. You know, gas prices, of course, will fluctuate, or, you know, things like that. But for the most part, I think, you know, in 2021, people will try to stick to their family unit and continue on, you know, going on these trips and things like that.
Yeah, to your point, I think that a lot of people are still not comfortable with flying, and that road trips are going to be a big thing for at least the next 8 to 10 months. And I've seen a lot of people going out west, and it's making me want to go out to Montana and like to do a long road trip or something like that. I even found myself last weekend, I drove to called Starved Rock in Illinois. It's like 2.5 hours away. Went hiking and all of that, and something that before I probably would have never done, but now it's like you want to jump in a car to get a quick getaway.
Yeah, like for my birthday, I just had my birthday, and we went to the Grand Canyon. You know, that wasn't part of my birthday plans, but you know, that was something we wanted to get in the car and be able to, you know, drive to the Grand Canyon and see something out in the outdoors. So, and a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are taking advantage of that, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, and then I think we're getting close to questions. So I want to wrap it up on more of a personal note with you. And I have 2 questions for you on this. The first one is, in your career in marketing and shopper marketing at Ford, what has been the most impactful project that you worked on?
So the most impactful project I worked on at Ford was actually a philanthropic project. When I was in Southern California, we launched a community service program with our local community at-risk kids that were, you know, looking to join a gang, or were primed to be, you know, joining gangs. And so Ford, along with the Orange County District Attorney's Office, set up a partnership, and we called it GRIP, Gang Reduction Intervention Program. And what we did is we would go to at-risk schools and really kind of mentor them and just talk about what we do and talk about, you know, auto industry. But, you know, it's a great way just to connect with kids. You know, cars are pretty cool, and you know, there's just a lot of avenues that they can go towards that, whether being it in marketing like myself, or a salesperson, a mechanic, or even a designer. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that, we have a design studio in Southern California, and our designers are super talented, and their ability to draw is just unparalleled. But they would draw, and they weren't the best kids in school either, and they're like, this was my passion. And so we just try to show these kids, whatever you're passionate about, keep going forward with that. And then at the end of the year, we had a big party for them at our Southern California headquarters, which is also connected to Taco Bell. So, we gave them free Taco Bell. We had our police officers, our sheriffs there. We did a demonstration with German Shepherds, police dogs. And then we had, keynote speakers that were, kind of rebels themselves, like Mad Mike, he's on Pimp My Ride and West Coast Customs. So that's kind of like an urban, custom shop. And then also Ryan Scheckler, which he's from Orange County, and he's a professional skateboarder. So again, kind of rebels in the industry, but are super successful and have really found their niche and their passion. So I would say that's, my favorite or impactful, I think that was your question, project at Ford, because we're changing kids' lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to expose them to all the different types of careers that they could do within just one company is just, I think it's very cool. Yeah. And then my last question before we go on to the Q&A, and this might be a tough question, because I think if you think back, it's kind of hard, but I always like to ask everyone this one. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Good question. So I had a professor in college, and I went to school in Texas, and football is huge in Texas, right? So not only was he a professor there, but he was the life skills coordinator for the football team, and also was the chaplain. So he was just a masterful motivator. So every time,
a Renaissance man.
Yeah, every time I was in his class, I was I wanted to run through a brick wall. But his advice was make an impact, not an impression. So it's an impact, not an impression. And I feel like that's what we did with those kids' lives. We wanted to be there for them long term. But if you want, his name was Rick Rigsby. There's a YouTube clip of him. It's got over 15 million views. It's called Wisdom of a Third Grade Dropout. So I recommend anybody that's watching, Rick Rigsby. Anyways, it's all about making an impact. So that's what I try to do.
That's a good one. Okay, so let's go on to the questions from everyone. The first one says, what brands are doing a great job of using influencer marketing to drive revenue?
So auto brands, what are we talking about?
Yes, I believe they're probably asking within the Ford umbrella.
Oh, okay. I can tell you what we're doing at Ford. With influencer marketing, we've had long history of influencer marketing. Back in the early 2000s, we had something called the Fiesta movement. We brought the Ford Fiesta over from Europe, right? And so US market hadn't had Fiesta for a really long time. And so, this was a long time. This was before a lot of the social media platforms that we see today were even around. But we gave about 60 at that time. There were YouTube influencers, but we gave them a camera, and we gave them a Ford Fiesta and showed them, and they showed all the fun, exciting things that that they did. Now currently, I think the biggest thing that we did as far as influencer wise is that when we released the Bronco, we partnered with Jimmy Chin. And Jimmy Chin, for those that you don't know, he was the director of Free Solo. So if you haven't seen that documentary, it's the climbing at Yosemite at Half Dome. So Jimmy Chin is completely authentic as an outdoor enthusiast. He's a director, and so we partnered with him to help create some of our content with Bronco, because those are the types of adventure seekers that we see driving Ford Bronco. So those are I think, two biggest things that we've done. One, roughly 10 years ago, and then just recently with Jimmy Chin, and just the authenticity that we have with them.
Cool. And so I've got another influencer marketing question for you. Looking ahead to 2021, where do you see the future of influencer marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think influencers always have a space, especially when you have a new product. With Mustang Mach-E, that was something that we relied on for influencer marketing, because this was a product that we had never had before. Not only was it a Mustang, but it was an all-electric Mustang. And so trying to find not only Mustang enthusiasts, but also tech enthusiasts, people that are up to date on the newest technology, and having them give their seal of approval and saying, look, this is a great vehicle that has the performance, the styling, the technology to compete with the best. And so I feel like, this was a new space, and but just getting that seal of approval is always helpful.
Very cool. Another 2021 question now. What is one thing that you want to do more in 2021?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think just be able to talk to our customers more. I think getting to the point where we can have events again, we can have auto shows again, because I think there's no replacing seeing a vehicle in person. It's great what we're doing with augmented reality, but for someone to see the lines, to see the angles, to get in, smell the leather interior, those things can't be replaced. And so for us to be in a world, and hopefully 2021, where people can touch and feel and feel what it feels like to sit in one of those cars, rather than just maybe watching a YouTube video on it. I mean, that's my space. I love it. We're trying our best to give our customers what they need and have virtual experiences, but at the same time, the real life version can't be beat.
Totally, I agree. I mean, there's nothing like feeling how a car drives when you're actually driving it to know if that's the car you want to buy or not. But I feel like what you guys have been doing with the challenges has really met what we need right now. Another question: how are you managing and navigating your business, your customer strategies, and employee engagement, particularly over the past few months?
It's just constant monitoring. I think the biggest thing, whether it's our budgeting, our internal stakeholders, our external stakeholders, we're trying to be as efficient and effective as we can, making the right decisions, using data to drive those decisions, seeing where technology can fit in. I think that's another big thing. In a world where it's things that we were able to do, we can't do anymore. But again, I think the biggest thing is continuing that trustful relationship that we have with customers, and making sure that they feel comfortable wherever we meet them. and that, you know, they don't feel pressured, or they don't feel, you know, that we're sending them the wrong message. But we're sending them a message that, you know, that, hey, we're there with you. I think, you know, we're a 117-year-old company. You know, we've had people have had generations of Fords in their garage, and so that's something that's still really important to us. And but we're constantly evolving. You know, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles. That's still on the platter and still on the plate. So we're not shying away from that. We're not shying away from our role in sustainability. That's still a huge pillar for us. So again, there's a lot of different things that we're working on, but again, we're trying to stay focused on
that. And I think we have our last question, which is like perfect timing. How do you see your audience demographic expanding to be more inclusive as the industry grows and evolves?
Great question. You know, we try to sell our vehicles to everyone, you know, whether that is your age, race, gender, or even disability. So, you know, we sell a lot of vans. You know, we have a big van space with our Ford Transit and Transit Connect. And so mobility is very important to us. And so when we talk about inclusivity, you know, it's those customers that aren't your traditional drivers, and, you know, we want to have solutions for them too. So again, we continue to market to everybody, and we're just looking forward to the future. So thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and look forward to chatting with anybody out there that wants to connect. Would love to.
This was great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm going to be checking out that electric Mustang. I mean, not necessarily with our next family car, but, you know, it sounds pretty awesome. So I'll definitely check it out. Thank you, guys. This was great. Always love having you. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in here, who's tuned in on LinkedIn and on YouTube as well. It's been a pleasure. As I noted earlier, we have a fantastic Women in Sports event tomorrow. So with speakers from Pepsi, from Verizon, from Bank of America, from T-Mobile, from the Green Bay Packers, and others. So do not miss that one. It's the second iteration of our Women in Sports program, and it's going to be fantastic. So hope to see you all there tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. We're out.